Hi students, welcome to PhD Jobs and Admission. This is Gauri. So in this video, I am going to teach you about research methodology subject of PhD entrance test at Anna University. So in this session, I am going to teach you about most important top 100 plus MCQs on research methodology. And that's why after giving this session, most of your MCQs will get covered in research methodology subject, and that's why you will get an idea exactly what kind of MCQs you will be asking in PhD entrance test at Anna University, and as well all of your doubts regarding research methodology subject will get clear. But still, if you have any doubts, you can ask me in the comment box.
So students, before starting this session, I want to tell you that Global Online team provides you complete course on research methodology subject. Because there is a PhD entrance test at Anna University on 7th May, and in this PhD entrance test you will be asking 25% marks for research methodology. I mean to say there will be 25% MCQs on research methodology, and that's why if you want to qualify the PhD entrance test, then obviously you need to score more marks in research methodology section. And that's why in this complete course, okay, we are providing you full syllabus video lectures under which theories and MCQs both are available. We are providing you full syllabus notes and mock test. We are providing you more than 1500 MCQs revision PDF. We are providing you study material, and those are available in both the languages, Hindi and English. And by using this course, you can all score more marks in research methodology section, and after that you can qualify the PhD entrance test. Okay, so students, we are providing you 10 mock tests like this, and each mock test contains 40 MCQs, and that's why overall you can solve 400 MCQs in the mock tests. By using this revision PDF, you can revise all your topics in a single PDF, and you will be getting 80% MCQs from this PDF only out of 100% MCQs in research methodology section of PhD entrance test. Okay, so students, if you want to buy this course, then all of you can either download the Global Online app from the Play Store. For that, I have given the link in the description box of this video, or else you can contact me through these WhatsApp numbers. And the course fees are only 699 rupees, okay, which are really very less. And in such low fees, Global Online team provides you step-by-step guidance at each and every stage of your PhD admission at Anna University. And as well, Global Online team provides you 100% passing guarantee, that you can guaranteed qualify the PhD entrance test over here. So now let us start with our today's session. Now the question 1 is, which of the following scales of measurement contains an absolute zero? So here they have given you 4 scales of measurement: nominal, ordinal, interval and ratio. Okay, so from these scales of measurement, which contains an absolute zero? Okay, so students, let us see one by one all the scales of measurement. Nominal. So in the nominal scale, basically you can classify your variable only. Okay, whatever data, you can only classify it. So there is only classification of the variables in the nominal scale. Then within the ordinal scale, there is classification and order. Classification and order. Okay, in the interval scale, there is classification, there is order and equal unit as well. Okay, classification, order and equal unit. Okay, and within the ratio scale, there is classification, there is order, there is equal unit, and as well there is absolute zero. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 4 over here, because in the ratio scale, 0 point represents absence of attribute being measured. It means it represents absence of variable it being measured. Okay, this means that ratios between values on this scale are meaningful and can be used for mathematical calculation. So example like measures of weight, then measures of height, measures of distance and measures of time. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 4, that is ratio scale. Next is the ratio level of measurement has what? Whether a constant odd number, whether a true 0 point, or whether unique applications or limited use in physical sciences. Okay, so students, as I have told you earlier in this video in the question 1, that the ratio level of measurement has a true 0 point. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 2, because in ratio level of measurement, data are measured on scale with equal intervals between units and true 0 point. and that's why ratio scale allows for addition, subtraction, division and multiplication of data. True zero point means, there is a point on a scale, okay, and it is called as true zero point because it has the zero value. I mean to say variable has the zero value, okay, proper zero value, and it means that there is absence of the attribute, and that's why if you want to represent the absence of the attribute, then you can give the value to it that is 0. All of you getting? And that's why ratio level of measurement has a true zero point. But other levels of measurement like nominal, ordinal and interval, so those does not have true zero point. Only ratio level of measurement has this characteristic, and that's why your correct answer should be 2. Next, which one of the following scales is based on the division in 100 units of equal size for 100 marks? So you have now total 100 marks, okay, and you are going to divide these 100 marks in 100 units of equal size. Okay, so what does this scale actually, whenever you do all these things, okay, so on all these things, what scales is exactly based on this? Whether it is nominal scale, whether it is ordinal scale, whether it is ratio scale or interval scale. Okay, so students, I have told you exactly what is nominal scale, what is ordinal and what is ratio and interval scale. So your correct answer for this question is 4, that is interval scale. So let me explain why. So interval scales are used to measure variables in which intervals between values are equal, but there is no true zero point. So like this, here there are 100 marks and you are going to divide these 100 marks in equal 100 units, okay, and that's why over here you are going to measure variables in which intervals between values are equal. So here the 100 units of equal size are there. It means that intervals of these sizes are equal basically, okay, and as well there is no true zero point, and that's why the scale based on this division is basically nothing but the interval scale, and that's why your correct answer should be 4. Now next is, in which scale of measurement classification, order and equality of units are ensured? So whether it is ordinal, whether it is nominal, whether it is interval or ratio. So here again they have given you the names of 4 scales of measurement, but we need to identify only one scale of measurement which has classification, which has order and which has equality of units as well, and all of these things basically are ensured in this scale of measurement. Okay, so students, the correct answer should be interval scale. So as I have told you earlier in this video that ordinal scale includes classification and order, right? Classification and order. Nominal scale includes only classification of the variables. Interval scale includes classification, then order and equal unit, right? And think about it. So classification, order and equality of units, all of these criterias are ensured in interval scale, and in the ratio scale it ensures classification, order, then equal unit and 0, okay, absolute 0, and that's why your correct answer should be 3. Now next is, which scale is the simplest form of measurement? Now again they have given you 4 types of measurement scales, and we need to identify the scale which is the simplest form of measurement. So whether it is ordinal, whether it is interval, whether it is ratio, whether it is nominal, okay. So students, the simplest form of measurement is nominal scale, because nominal scale includes only classification of the variable, okay. You are going to only classify the data over here. There is no any numerical value you are going to give to the variables. Basically here the variables include are the categorical variables, okay, and these kinds of variables can't be quantified. You can only classify them according to the common characteristics, and that's why this is the simplest form of measurement. An ordinal scale includes classification and giving orders or ranks to the variables. Interval scales include classification, order, and equal intervals. Ratio scale includes classification, giving orders, then equal sizes, and as well zero. Okay, so basically there is a absolute zero, and that's why the highest level of measurement scale is zero and the lowest level of measurement scale is nominal scale, which is the simplest form of measurement. Next is absolute zero exists in. Now this is the very easiest question, whether it is nominal scale, whether it is interval scale, whether it is ordinal scale, or whether it is ratio scale. So students, absolute zero exists in ratio scale, that I have told you earlier in this video, right? Next, in which of the scales of measurement the properties of classification and order both are present? Now here again they have given you four types of scales of measurement, and from these four types of scales of measurement, there is only one scale of measurement which has the properties of classification and order both. So whether it is nominal, whether it is ordinal, whether it is interval, or whether it is ratio. So that as I have told you earlier in this video, that only there is ordinal scale of measurement which has the properties of both classification and order, right? And that's why it is called as ordinal scale of measurement. So your correct answer should be 2. Now next is, what is the name for the type of checklist or rating scale that expresses criteria on some point scale to determine the quality of the performance of a student? Okay, so students, here they have given you some names of rating scale, or you can say there is only one name for rating scale, which is the name for the type of checklist or rating scale which expresses criteria on some point scale to determine the quality of the performance of a student. So whether it is diffusion, rubrics, track system, or deduction. So students, whenever you see these options, then you will understand that diffusion is the term which occurs in the osmosis part, or whenever there is the flow of water or substances across the cells. So this is nothing but the diffusion, and that's why this concept is considered in biology. Okay, so diffusion does not play any role in the type of checklist or rating scale in research methodology. That's why this option gets eliminated. Track system, again this is eliminated. Deduction gets eliminated. So the remaining option, that is rubrics, is your correct answer. So now let us understand exactly what is the rubrics. Okay, so first of all students, rubrics or checklists or rating scales, those are actually equal, similar, and these are the tools that state specific criteria and allow teachers and students to gather information and make judgments about what students know and what students can do in relation to the outcomes. Okay, and the quality of information acquired through use of checklists, rating scales, and rubrics is highly dependent on equality of descriptors chosen for assessment or deduction purpose of rubrics. Okay, and the purpose of rubrics is to provide tools for systematic recording and observation, and provide tools for self-assessment basically. And that's why only understand over here that rubrics is a type of checklist or rating scale, and it is useful to give some criteria on some point scale, and so that we can determine the quality of the performance of a student. Okay, that's why your correct answer should be 2 over here. Next is, now here they have given you list 1 and list 2, and you need to match the list 1 with list 2. So within list 1 they have given you different scales of measurement, and within list 2 they have given description of their properties. So scales of measurement includes nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio, and description of properties include classification and order, classification, order, and equal units, classification, order, equal units, and absolute zero. So as I have told you earlier in this video that nominal scale includes only classification of variables, that's why nominal will go for classification. Ordinal scale includes both classification and order, that's why ordinal will go for classification and order both. Interval scale includes classification, order, and equal units, that's why it will go for this. Ratio scale includes classification, order, equal units, and absolute zero, that's why D option will matches with 4. That's why your correct answer should be 2, because over here A is matching with 2, okay, then B is matching with 1, then C is matching with 3, and D is matching with 4, right? Now next is, which one of the following scales are the most appropriate and reliable to measure a single attitude? Okay, so if I want to measure a single attitude of a person, then here they have given you different types of scales, and from these scales, which is the most and appropriate and reliable type of scale to measure a single attitude only. So whether it is Likert type scales, whether it is differential scales, whether it is Thurstone scales, or whether it is arbitrary scales. Now students, let us see one by one these scales. So basically these are not the common 4 types of measurement scales in research that we have discussed earlier in this video. These are the different scales, and that's why you need to understand the concept of these scales. So first of all, let us see Likert type scales. So students, Likert type scale is a rating scale, and it is used to measure opinions, attitudes, or behaviors. Okay, so from this scale you can measure opinions, then attitudes and behaviors. Okay, now what is now differential scale? So differential scale measures attitudes towards something. Okay, so basically it measures attitudes towards something. So for example, if you want to understand the attitude of a people toward the work, then for that basis, or for that thing, basically you use differential scales. And for measuring attitude towards the work on a differential scale, okay, this is nothing but the differential scale. And that's why if you want to measure a single attitude of a person toward a something, okay, and differential scale is the most appropriate and reliable way. That's why your correct answer should be 2, not Likert type scale, because Likert's type scale is useful to measure opinions, attitudes, and behaviors. I mean to say all. But if you want to exactly measure a single attitude towards something, then obviously the most appropriate and reliable way is differential scale. Now let us see what is Thurstone scale. So Thurstone scale measures respondents' attitude by using series of agree-disagree statements of various weightage. Okay, so basically here again you can measure the respondents' attitude, but by using the series of agree-disagree statements of various weightage, and that's why here you can't only measure a single attitude. So over here you can measure different types of attitude of a single people or single person. Okay, that's why this is again option gets eliminated. And the next one is arbitrary scales. So arbitrary scales are developed on ad hoc basis and are designed largely through researchers' subjective selection of items. And researcher in this type of process first collects a few statements or items which he believes are unclear and appropriate to given topic. So the meaning of arbitrary means unspecific, or which is not structured or which is unclear. And that's why whenever you need to measure the variables which are not that much clear to the researcher, but these are appropriate to the specific topic, okay, then at this specific kind of situation you can use arbitrary scales. And that's why this option again gets eliminated. Likert type scales gets eliminated, so your correct answer should be 2. Okay, they have given us some options, and from these options, which is the option which is not included in the impact factor, or which is not the characteristic of impact factor. Okay, so whether it is author metric, then journal metric, calculated in 2, 3 or 5 years basis, and it is helpful in journal targeting. So let us see first of all what is impact factor. So students, impact factor is calculated by dividing number of times articles, okay, number of times articles are cited in the last 2 years, in the last 2 years, by the total number of publication in these 2 years. Okay, in these 2 years. Okay, and that's why students, impact factor is journal metric, because based upon the impact factor of a particular journal, we are going to provide the credit to the journal, whether that journal is, you know, great, good or bad, like that. And that's why impact factor is journal metric. As well, it is calculated in 2 years basis. Okay, because here the formula is like number of times articles cited in last 2 years upon total number of publication in these 2 years, right? And that's why it is calculated in 2 years basis. And as well, it is helpful in journal targeting, and that's why the correct answer for this question is 1, author metric, because impact factor is not, you know, author metric, because it is not you know, a characteristic of impact factor, and that's why your correct answer is author metric. And all of these options are the characteristics of impact factor, and that's why all of these options gets eliminated. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 1, that is author metric. Now next is, which journal metric tracks citations of the last 2 years. Now here you know, here they have given us some journal metric. Okay, and which journal metric from these options tracks citations of the last 2 years, whether it is cite score, whether it is impact factor, whether it is H5 index, or whether it is article influence. Now students, let us see one by one what are these. So first of all, let us see what is cite score. So students, cite score of a journal is number of citation received in that year and previous 3 years for documents published in journal during that period. Okay, divided by total number of published documents in journal during same 4-year period. So as we have seen the formula for impact factor, where number of times articles cited in last 2 years, but here within the cite score, the number of articles that we include basically for last 4 years. Okay, and that's why your formula for cite score will be number of times articles cited in last 4 years upon total number of publication in these 4 years. So here you are going to calculate the citations for last 4 years instead of 2 years. Okay, and that's why this option gets eliminated, because here they have asked you about the citations of the last 2 years, but over here you are tracking citations of the last 4 years, right? But in the impact factor, you are going to track the citations of the last 2 years, right, according to the formula, and that's why your correct answer for this is 2. Now let us see what is H5 index. Okay, so basically students, this H5 index, as the name suggests, H5, so this tracks citations of the last 5 years. Okay, of the last 5 years, and this is author level metric that measures both productivity and citation impact of publication, and this is the largest number, okay, of citations of the previous years, because here you are going to track the citations of the last 5 years, right? And that's why this is the largest you can say key journal metric which are going to cite the you know, which are going to tracks the citations for the last 5 years. What is article influence? What does this mean? So basically students, article influence is calculated by dividing the eigenfactor score, okay, dividing the eigenfactor score by percentage of all articles recorded in the journal, okay, percentage of all articles recorded in the journal, okay. That's why citation reports that were published in a specific journal, okay. So students, the simple formula for article influence is eigenfactor score divided by percentage of all articles recorded in a journal citation and the reports that were published in a specific journal, okay. And students, eigenfactor score is actually, it is the rating of total importance of specific journal, okay. So this eigenfactor score is nothing but the rating of total importance of specific journal, okay. So specific journal, okay, and its total importance, okay, and all of the rating of this is nothing but the eigenfactor score. All of you getting? And that's why your correct answer should be 2 over here, which is impact factor. Next is, which journal metric tracks citations of the last 3 years? Now here again they have given you the names of certain journal metric, and from these journal metric, which is the journal metric which tracks citations of the last 3 years. So whether it is cite score, whether it is impact factor, whether it is H5 index, or whether it is eigenfactor. So students, we have seen the definitions of cite score, impact factor, H5 index and eigenfactor in earlier part of this video, and that's why your correct answer should be 1, cite score, because according to the definition of cite score is going to track the citations basically of the last 3 years including the current year, and that's why from the current year it is going to track the citations of the basically 4 years, okay, and the including last 3 years plus 1 current year, okay. And that's why your correct answer over here is 1, because within the impact factor it is going to track the citations of the last 2 years, H5 index going to track citations of the last 5 years, and eigenfactor is the overall importance, okay, of a specific journal, okay. This is nothing but the eigenfactor, right? And that's why your correct answer for this question should be 1. The 5-year based journal metric is, now from these journal metrics, which is the 5-year based journal metric. 5-year based journal metric means it is going to track the citations of last 5 years, okay. So whether it is cite score, whether it is impact factor, whether it is SNP, whether it is article influence. So students, cite score is basically going to track actually your citations for the last actually 3 years, right? Impact factor is going to track your citations for last 2 years, okay. Now let us see what is SNP and article influence. What is this? So basically students, SNP is source normalized impact per paper. So this is source normalized impact per paper, okay, and it is calculated by dividing average number of citations received in particular year by papers published in journal during 3 preceding years by database citation potential, okay. So basically this is the ratio of average number of citation, okay, average number of citation received in particular year, okay, by papers published in journal, by papers published in journal during 3 preceding years, okay, to the database citation potential, okay, database citation potential, that is DCP. Okay, so this is nothing but the formula for SNP, and I have given you the full form for SNP. Okay, now let us see what is article influence. Like I have told you earlier in this video that article influence is calculated by dividing the eigenfactor score by percentage of all articles recorded in the journal, okay, citation reports that were published in a specific journal. Okay, and that's why your correct answer for this question is 4, article influence, because this is the 5-year based journal metric, journal metric, because here you are dividing the eigenfactor score, which is the ultimate overall importance of a specific journal and its score, right, by the percentage of all articles recorded in the journal. Okay, and that's why this is actually journal metric which is based on 5-year, and that's why your correct answer should be 4. Okay, because if you see SNP, then it is actually relevant to the preceding 3 years, impact factor for 2 years, and site score again for preceding 3 years, and that's why the remaining option will be article influence, which is actually 5-year based journal metric, and that's why your correct answer is 4. Next is the impact factor depends on. So on what actually things impact factor depends on? Whether number of citations, whether number of publications, whether number of downloads, or both 1 and 2. So students, if we see the definition of impact factor, or if we calculate the impact factor, then basically we divide number of times articles are cited in the last 2 years to the total number of publication in these 2 years, and that's why here we take consider number of citations, what are the number of citations, and as well we consider the number of publications. Okay, and that's why on these 2 factors basically impact factor depends on, and that's why your correct answer for this question should be 4, 1 and 2, because number of citations and number of publications, both of these factors plays important role in deciding what is the impact factor of a particular journal. Okay, that's why this is 4. Next, site score covers. Now site score covers what? All types of publications, only research articles, only review articles, or B and C both. So students, site score is again the journal metric, and as I have told you the definition of site score. Okay, so it is going to track the citations of preceding 3 years including current 1 year. Okay, and that's why actually site score covers all types of publications. It is nothing like that it is going to cover only research articles or only review articles, or both, only research and review articles. Basically site score covers everything. Okay, it is going to cover all types of publications. That's why your correct answer is 1. Okay, now next is, which is the right answer regarding the following pair of metrics and their number of years basis. Now students, here they have given us the journal metric, and in front of it they have given us the years. Okay, basically years for what? So these years are the tracking period of the citations of this specific journal metric. So we are going to identify the right matches of the tracking period of citations by the journal metric to the journal metric. So let us see options, then you will understand what is that. So here eigenfactor, then AI means article influence. Okay, article influence dash 5 year. So it means that they have given us that eigenfactor and article influence, both of these are the journal metrics, and they are going to track the citations for preceding 5 years. Okay, so this is the meaning of this first option. So again in the second option, site score, SNP and SJR. So all of these 3 are the journal metrics, and they are going to track the citations for preceding 3 years. Impact factor, again 2 year. Okay, so here it means that impact factor is going to track the citations for preceding 2 years and all of the above. So students, if we see all of these options, then you will understand that your correct answer is all of the above, because all of these options are correct. It means that eigenfactor, article influence are going to track citations for preceding 5 years, and this is true. Basically this is the definition of these journal metrics. And again, the definition of site score, SNP and SDR resolves the terms that these are going to track the citations for preceding 3 years, and again this is the correct, right? This is correct. Impact factor 2 year, this is also correct, and everyone knows it, and that's why your correct answer should be 4. Next is, which is an indexing agency. Now here they have given us certain names of institutes or agencies, and we need to identify the indexing agency from these. So NASA is an indexing agency or not, Scopus, MHRD or Turnitin. So all of you are well known about NASA. Basically NASA is situated in US, and the full form of NASA is National Aeronautics and Space Administration, right? And it is independent agency of US federal government, and it is responsible for civil space program, aeronautics research and space research, and that's why this is not an indexing agency, so this gets eliminated. Now let us see what is Scopus. What is this? So basically students, Scopus delivers broadest coverage of any interdisciplinary abstract and citation database. So basically Scopus provides the database, okay, for citation and for interdisciplinary abstract as well. Okay, and that's why Scopus is an indexing agency. Okay, because Scopus is going to help you for indexing your journals, and that's why your correct answer should be 2 over here. And MHRD, all of you are well known about MHRD. This is the Department of Higher Education, and it is responsible for overall development of basic infrastructure of higher education sector, right? And Turnitin, as we have seen earlier in the yesterday's video, Turnitin is the plagiarism detection software. Okay, this is commercial plagiarism detection software, and it sells its licenses to across the globe to different universities, then academic institutes, right? And that's why this option gets eliminated. Again MHRD option gets eliminated, so your correct answer is Scopus. So you should remember that Scopus is an indexing agency which are going to provide you database for interdisciplinary abstract and citations. Okay, now next is, which is an author metric. Now over here they have given you certain metrics for journal and author, so we are going to identify from these options which is an author metric. Author metric means from this metric you can understand the credibility of an author, not only of an journal or not a journal actually. So whether it is site score, whether it is impact factor, whether it is H index, whether it is H5 index. So students, from these options, basically we have seen earlier in this video that site score and impact factor, both of these are actually journal metric. Journal metric means by the actually scores of these site score and impact factors, you can give the credit to the specific journal, and that's why this is called as journal metric. You gives the values to the journal, okay, and that's why these two options get eliminated, because this is not an author metric. Now let us see H index and H5 index. Again we have seen about H5 index. It is going to track the citations for preceding 5 years, and that's why again this is a journal metric, this is not an author metric, so this option gets eliminated. So the remaining option, that is H index, so this should be your correct answer. Okay, because H index is author level metric that measures both the productivity and citation impact of the publication initially used for individual scientist or scholar. Okay, and that's why remember students that H index is an author metric, this is not a journal metric. Okay, and all of these site score, impact factor, H5 index, then AI, all of these are the journal metric. Again eigenfactor is a journal metric. Okay, so your correct answer should be 3. I-10 index refers to, now students, what is I-10 index? So whether it is 10 paper with 10 or more citations, or number of paper with 10 or more citations, or A and B, or none of the above. So students, I-10 index actually refers to number of publication with at least 10 citation. Okay, so number of publication with at least 10 citation, and that's why I-10 index refers to what? Number of paper with 10 or more citations. At least 10 citation means more than 10 citations are applicable. Okay, that's why your correct answer should be 2. Okay, so students, I know this topic is really you can say difficult to understand, but understand over here that based upon these metric, okay, we are going to give the values to the particular journals. Okay, and for example, if a certain journal has a good impact factor or has a good eigen factor, then we can understand that that journal has many citations, it has many articles, and those citations and articles are high level. Okay, okay, and that's why these concepts are really important. And again we are going to give the author index, or author metric. So this is important because we can give the values to the authors based upon the level of citations or level of articles they are providing. All of you getting? So don't confuse within these. So just remember over here that H index is author metric, then site score, impact factor, H5 index, AI is nothing but what? It is actually the journal metric. And I-10 index, this concept is also very important because on this concept as well you will be asking questions in PhD entrance test. So I-10 index is basically nothing but the number of paper with at least 10 citations. So now let us start with our today's session. Now the question 1 is, the act of presenting someone else's work or idea is as own is considered as. Now whenever you are presenting someone else's work as your own, or if you are presenting someone else's idea as your own, then that kind of action is considered as what? Whether it is plagiarism, whether it is academic dishonesty, or whether it is wrongful appropriation, or all of these. So basically students, within the whole research methodology subject, okay, the act of presenting someone else's work or idea as our own is considered as plagiarism. And there are other words for plagiarism such as academic dishonesty, because you are presenting someone else's work or idea as your own, and that's why this is academic dishonesty. And again this is wrongful appropriation as well. Okay, and that's why the correct answer for this will be all of these. So all of these is your correct answer, because this kind of act is called as plagiarism, it is called as academic dishonesty, it is called as wrongful appropriation. Okay, and that's why your correct answer is 4. Okay, now next is, do you think anti-plagiarism detection software is usable for what? So why students we use anti-plagiarism detection software? Why we use it? Okay, what is the mode of action of this kind of software? So let us see different options. Avoiding plagiarism, then getting a comparison or similarity index to check the originality of the assignment, then added features like instant feedback to help improve writing, then do not find useful for any of these. So basically students, anti-plagiarism detection software works by scanning body of text. So this is works by scanning body of text and comparing it with other sources of content, so to see if there are similarities or matches. Okay, and it uses different methods to break down text into smaller chunks and search for keywords, phrases, content matching or fragment matching, and accordingly the software detects the plagiarism, whether there is plagiarism or not. Okay, and that's why this software is usable for getting a comparison or similarity index to check the originality of the assignment. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 2. Okay, and for this kind of purpose basically we use the anti-plagiarism detection software. Okay, now next is, which of the following plagiarism software is available under open access? So here we have asked that from these anti-plagiarism softwares, okay, which is the software which is available under open access or which is free of cost, everyone can access it. So whether it is Turnitin, whether it is Urkund, or whether it is Viper. So students, all of these three are the anti-plagiarism detection softwares, or simply you can say plagiarism software. So let us see one by one what are they. So Turnitin is internet based plagiarism detection service, and it is run by American company which is called as Turnitin. Okay, Turnitin LLC, and it is subsidiary of Advanced Publication, and it is founded in 1998. So this is actually the plagiarism software, and it is not free of cost. Okay, it is not free of cost, and basically this software company sells its licenses to different universities, then academic institutions, so that they can use their plagiarism detection system, and that's why this is not free of cost, and that's why it does not available under open access. So this gets eliminated. Now let us see what is Urkund. So again, Urkund is a plagiarism software, and it is actually not free of cost. This is again not free of cost. Okay, and that's why this option gets eliminated. So the remaining option is Viper, and that's why Viper is the correct answer for this question. So Viper is plagiarism software, and it is available under open access, so everyone can use it to check the plagiarism of their academic work. Okay, and that's why your correct answer is Viper. Next is, which of the following software is a paid software for checking the similarity index in a research paper? Okay, so from these names of the softwares which are plagiarism softwares, which is the software which is a paid software, basically we pay for it for checking the similarity index in a research paper, or simply for checking the plagiarism. So whether it is Viper, whether it is Plag Track, whether it is Urkund, or whether it is CopyLeaks. Okay, so students, over here Viper is the free of cost software, as we have seen earlier in this video. So this option gets eliminated because it is not paid, right? Then yeah, Urkund is a paid, as we have seen. Okay, so this could be your correct answer. Now let us see other these two options, Plag Track and CopyLeaks. So Plag Track is Ukrainian based online plagiarism detection software. So this is Ukrainian based online plagiarism detection software, and this is actually free of cost. So this is again free of cost, this is not paid, and that's why this option gets eliminated. And what is CopyLeaks? So CopyLeaks is a software company, and again CopyLeaks, a software company, provides plagiarism software, and it contains artificial intelligence based plagiarism. Okay, artificial intelligence based plagiarism and artificial intelligence content detection. Okay, and that's why this is again the plagiarism detection software, and this is free of cost. Okay, this is again free of cost, and that's why this option gets eliminated. So your correct answer is 3, that is Urkund. So Urkund is a paid software for checking the similarity index in a research paper. Okay, now next is plagiarism, where the writer changes a few words in the original text of another, is known as. So now here they have given different types of plagiarism, but here they have mentioned a definition of a specific type of plagiarism. So in this kind of plagiarism, the writer changes a few words only in the original text of another. Okay, so this kind of plagiarism is called as what? So whether we call it as direct copying, then word switch, then paraphrasing. So students, direct copying, word switch and paraphrasing, all of these are the types of plagiarism basically. So let us see one by one what are they. So direct copying is happen in complete plagiarism. or direct plagiarism, or you can say complete plagiarism and direct plagiarism. So complete plagiarism means completely we are copying someone else's work in our research, and we are saying that it's our own work. Okay, this is called as complete plagiarism. And what is direct plagiarism? So basically students, direct plagiarism is again similar to complete plagiarism, but there is difference between the two, and it is that, you know, within direct plagiarism the content that we copy is actually small, and in complete plagiarism basically we completely copy everything. So whether it is a research paper or whether it is a book, so we are copying everything from that book, we are copying everything from that research paper. But in the direct plagiarism we are copying some kind of work from that book or research paper. For example, I am only copying its abstract, okay, as a whole. So basically I am doing a direct copying, but the amount that I am copying is small in direct plagiarism. Okay, and that's why direct copying happens in these both kinds of plagiarisms, that is complete plagiarism and direct plagiarism. So both of these are the basically types of plagiarism, but here we don't change a few words in the original text, we are direct copying it, and that's why this option gets eliminated. What is word switch? Now within the word switch we are changing some words in the original text, and after that we are going to copy that original text, and then we are pasting it in our research paper. So this is called as word switch, and that's why your correct answer for this question is 2, because here basically writer what do, he does, you know, he does basically make some changes in the few words in the original text, and after that he is going to copy that original text into his research paper, and he is saying that it's my own work. So this is called the word switch plagiarism. Okay, and that's why here your correct answer should be 2. Now what is paraphrasing? So again paraphrasing is a type of plagiarism, and in this kind of basically plagiarism, what writer do, writer actually make some changes in the words, okay, and after that he is copying that original text and pasting in his research paper and saying that it's my own work. So basically within the paraphrasing we actually change phrases or words, okay, in our own language, but the idea is someone else's, all of you getting, and we are saying that it's our own idea. So this is called as paraphrasing. So for example, there is a paragraph in a original text, and what I am doing, I am changing some phrases, I am changing some words, or else I am changing the actually sequence of sentences. Okay, and after that I am copying this whole paragraph in my research paper and saying that this is my work, this is my idea. So this is called paraphrasing. So, though I am changing phrases, though I am changing words, though I am changing the format of the sentence, but still it is called as paraphrasing, because I am saying that it is my own idea, and I am also not actually providing a credit to this original author. Okay, and that's why it is called as the plagiarism. Okay, and this is paraphrasing type of plagiarism. So this option again gets eliminated, so your correct answer should be 2. Okay, now next is the Latin word which is understood as the origin of the word plagiarism is. Now basically students, plagiarism is the word which is actually has a origin in the Latin word. What is that Latin word? Whether it is plagiarius, whether it is plagiarius, whether it is plagiarius, whether it is plagiarize. So students, the correct answer or the correct word for this is 1, that is plagiarius. So plagiarius is the Latin word, and the meaning of this Latin word is plagiarism. Okay, or you can say the origin of the word plagiarism is plagiarius, which is a Latin word. Now next is, there has been a steep rise in plagiarism due to. So students, now you can see that, every day, or in nowadays, in today's world, basically, there is ultimate very increase in plagiarism. So why this is, why there is steep rise in plagiarism, what is the reason behind it? So whether the reason is that increase in publication growth, whether the reason is increase in enrollment for research work, or availability of digital documents, or use of computers in research. So basically students, the biggest reason behind is that availability of digital documents, because if you say that there are lots of documents available on the internet, and that's why everyone can access the internet, everyone can read everything on the internet, and after reading everyone can copy it in their research paper and say that it is my own work, it is my own idea. So it is actually easiest thing anyone can do, and that's why, because of the availability of these digital documents, anyone can access it, and that's why there is increase in plagiarism, okay, in today's world. And if in the previous or in the past days, basically, there wasn't availability of digital documents that much, and everybody had to read the physical copies of the books or research papers, and that's why everybody could not access it, and that's why there wasn't that much problem of plagiarism. But in today's world everyone is using digital documents, and because of that there is rise in plagiarism. That's why your correct answer should be 3. Next is, which plagiarism software among the following is a commercial software? Now over here again they have given us the different names of plagiarism software, and among these plagiarism software, which is the software which is a commercial software? Commercial software means commercially it is available across the globe, and this kind of software is actually made by a biggest software company, and this company actually selling the licenses of this software to different universities, then academic institutions, and students across the globe. Okay, so whether it is Viper, whether it is Plag Track, whether it is Turnitin, or whether it is CopyLeaks. So students, whenever you see these names of the plagiarism software, then you will understand that, as we have seen earlier in this video, Viper, PlagTrack and CopyLeaks, all of these three are the free of cost plagiarism software. No one pays for it. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 3, which is a remaining option, which is Turnitin, because Turnitin actually sells its licenses, and that's why it is not free of cost. Everyone has to pay to Turnitin for checking plagiarism in their material. Okay, that's why your correct answer should be 3. Next, which of the following acts constitute plagiarism? Okay, so now here they have given some acts which constitute plagiarism, and we need to identify those acts which constitute plagiarism. So whether it is presenting others' work as own, whether paraphrasing without citation, quoting others' work without quotation marks, all of these. So students, obviously your correct answer should be 4, that is all of these, because presenting others' work as own is the definition of plagiarism. Basically this is actually called as plagiarism, right? And as well, paraphrasing without citation is again plagiarism, as I have told you in the earlier part of this video, and this is called as the paraphrasing plagiarism. This is the type of plagiarism. Okay, though you are doing some changes in the whole paragraph, but again you are copying it. Okay, it's not your own idea, and over that you are not giving the credit to the original author, and that's why it is called as the paraphrasing plagiarism. And whenever you are quoting others' work without quotation marks, again this is the act of plagiarism. Okay, you should give the quotation marks to the quoting part of others' work, and that's why your correct answer should be 4 over here, all of this, because all of these acts basically constitute the plagiarism. Okay, Now next is a dash is placed within the text and includes the author's last names and the publication year. A dash is placed at the end of a paper and includes information on the author's year, the title of the source and publication data to prevent plagiarism and give proper citation to work referred. So basically students, in this question we need to fill up these two blank spaces. So first of all, let us fill the first blank space. Okay, so over here they have asked us that what is the word is called which is placed within the text and it includes the author's last names and the publication year. So basically it is called as what, students? It is called as the reference, or it is called as the citation, right? So first option gets eliminated because it does not called as quotation, it does not called as reference list, because it's a list and list means it includes a lot of references, and here we are only giving only one reference which actually includes author's last names and the publication year, and this is actually placed within the text. Okay, and that's why it could not be a reference list, so it gets eliminated. And again fourth option gets eliminated because it is not a reference list, and that's why remaining option is 3. So it means that that word will be citation. Okay, so it is called as citation, and obviously your remaining blank space word will be reference list. Okay, because reference list includes a list of all the references. Okay, it does not include a name of only one reference. Okay, it includes the list of all the references, and that's why your correct answer should be 3. And over here your first word will be citation and your second word will be reference list, because citation is referred to as a reference, okay, which is placed within the text and it includes the author's last names and the publication year only. But within a reference list it includes the all the references that we refer, and it placed at the end of a paper, and it includes information on the authors, means it includes the information of the author's surname and its name, then year of publication, then title of the source, then publication data to prevent plagiarism, and as well it gives proper citation to work referred. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 3 over here. Students, let us start with our today's session now. The question 1 is, what is the correct sequence in a citation for a journal? So basically students, whenever you write a whole research report and that particular research report get published in a particular journal, okay, then at the end okay, of each and every research report we write the references, and as well we write the references within the text as well. Okay, so there is a proper you can say a referencing style, okay, which is called as sequence of a citation, and here they have asked you that correct sequence in a citation for a journal. So let us see over here the different options: pagination, volume number, name of the author, title of the article, title of the journal. So students, everyone uses a standard format of referencing style, okay, and it includes the sequence of certain things. So first of all you need to write the name of the author. Okay, so first of all you need to write the name of the author, then after that you need to write the title of the article. Okay, then write the title of the article, then write the title of the journal, then write the volume number, okay, and then write the pagination or pagination. So pagination means page numbers, okay, on which page what is there, or in that particular whole journal, okay, on which page that article is there. Okay, so that is nothing but the pagination or page number. So your correct answer should be 1, because C will come first, then after that D will come, then after that E will come, then B will come, and then A will come. So this is the standard format of writing a reference or writing a citation for a journal, okay, and everyone uses it. Students, authors, everyone uses it, as well as scientists uses it, okay. So your correct answer is 1. Next is IBID is used in which of the following? So when we use IBID exactly, and in what thing we use IBID? So whether we use it in citation, whether we use it in bibliography or in index or in figures and tables. So first of all, students, let us see what is IBID. So students, the full form of IBID is the in the same source, okay, in the same source, okay, and it is used to save space in textual references to quoted work which has been mentioned in a previous reference, okay. All of you understood, and that's why IBID is used in citation, okay. As I have told you earlier in the question 1 that citation means you are referring a particular article, okay, and that's why you are mentioning that article in your whole research report, because you have referred it for your whole research process, okay. So this is nothing but the citation, and IBID is used in citation, and the full form of IBID is in the same source, and it is used to save space, okay, to save space in the textual format or in the textual references to the quoted work which has been mentioned in a previous reference as well, okay. Now what is bibliography? So now bibliography includes both the things. It includes citation or references, as well it includes the other references such as books, okay. So it includes citation and other books that we refer or that we don't refer, but still we mention it in the bibliography because it includes that information which is relevant to the research topic, and that's why the reader can use these sources for their further research or further knowledge, okay. This is nothing but the bibliography, and again IBID can be used in bibliography as well, but the primary useness of IBID is in the citation itself, and then after that it comes in bibliography. Then index means basically within the index we give the information about at what page number what is there in the whole research report. And figures and tables, all of you know that what is that, figures and tables. That's why your correct answer is 1, that is citation. The term AL means which of the following? Now what is the meaning of AL now? So whether it means that same or and others or cited in or appendices. So students, the meaning of AL means and others, okay, and others, and it is used especially in referring to academic books or articles that have more than one author, okay. So for a particular book or article have more than one author, then actually what we do that we mention the name of one author, and after that we mention AL, so the name of that author and others, okay. This is the common, you can say, referencing style, okay, that we use in citation. So this is again the short form that we use in citation, and the meaning of that short form is and others, and when we use it whenever we are giving the reference for a particular book or article, and if it has more than one author, then in that situation what we do, we write the name of one author only, and after that we mention AL, so it means that the name of that author and others, okay. That's why your correct answer is 2, because the meaning of this short form is and others. Next, bibliography given in a research report shows vast knowledge of the researcher, helps those interested in further research, has no relevance to research, or has no specific value. So as I have told you earlier in this video itself, that bibliography includes the references, okay, that we refer during our whole research process, and as well it includes the books or different articles that we don't refer actually, but it is useful for the reader, okay, so that they can grab more knowledge about the research topic, and as well they can do the further research. And that's why bibliography is given in a research report, so that it can help those interested in further research. So your correct answer is 2. Next, pick the correct format of the reference. Now over here they have given different options, and each option includes the different format of the referencing style, and we need to identify the correct format of referencing style. So let us see. Title of the chapter or article, then title of the book or journal, then first name, then last name, then publication, then place, then year, and then page number. Last name of the author, first name of the author, title of the chapter or article, then title of the book or journal, then publication, then place, then year, then page number. Title of the chapter, first name, last name, article, title of the book or journal, then publication, then place, then year, then page number. Title of the book or journal, then title of the chapter, then first name, then last name, then article, then publication, then place, then year, and then page number. So students, as I have told you in the question 1 of this video, that the common referencing style of any kind of author is that you need to write first of all the last name of the author. Okay, so first of all you write the last name of the author, then after that you write the first name of the author, then after that you write the title of the article or the chapter. Okay, so whenever it is a journal, then you can write the title of the article, or whenever there is a book, then you can write the title of the chapter. Okay, then after that you write the title of the journal, from which journal you have given that article, or you have referred that article, or you can write the title of the book. Then after that you can write the publication, what is that publication. Then after that you write the place of the publication, then year of the publication, and the last one should be your page number. Okay, so that's why your correct answer is 2, because this is the correct sequence or correct format of the referencing style. So you are writing last name of the author, first name of the author, then title of the chapter or article, then title of the book or journal, then publication, then place, and then year, and then page number. So this is the common format and everyone uses it, and you should to remember this format. Okay, arrange the correct order of bibliography. Now again here they have asked you about the correct order of writing bibliography. So again within bibliography same rule occurs, or same rule applies. So let us see over here. Publication given, then last name, first name, then title of book, then place or year, place and year. So students, whenever you write the bibliography, then again you need to write the last name of the author, then first name of the author, then after that write the title of the book. Okay, then write the publication, and then write the place, then write the year. So this is the common format. That's why your correct answer is 2 over here, because B will come first, that is last name and first name of author, then title of book comes next, then publication comes next, and then last one should be place and year. Okay, next is critical and analytical writing refers to. Now what is the meaning of critical and analytical writing? So students, in the research report writing there are 2 types of writing. The first one is descriptive writing, and the second one is critical or analytical writing. So basically the meanings of both of these writings are similar. Okay, so here now we will understand exactly what is the meaning of critical and analytical writing. Okay, so critical writing explain the impact, okay, or consequence of given situation. So for example, there is a particular situation, so critical writing explains the impact of this situation, okay, or the consequence of the situation. Then it links the discussion back to research aims objectives and research question. So whenever we do a specific kind of research, then obviously we have a research question, we have the research aims, we have the objectives, and that's why critical writing, okay, forms a particular link between the discussion part of the research report to the aim of the research. All of you getting? So this is the most important thing, and that's why analytical or critical writing basically focuses upon the meaning of everything in the whole research process, and descriptive writing basically describes, okay, when, how, okay. So these things, what, okay, these things describe by the descriptive writing, but analytical writing focuses upon the importance of it. So let us see what are the options they have given us. Methodology used in research writing, then method of reading and writing, then research to be evaluated and writing a report on it, then criticism of the research writing. So as I have told you earlier that critical, analytical writing and descriptive writing, so these are the formats of writing a research report, and that's why this is a methodology used in research writing, and that's why your correct answer is 1, because these basically are the methodologies that we use in research writing. Okay, next, what is Harvard and Chicago referencing style? Now what is meant by Harvard and Chicago referencing style? So whether references taken from Harvard University, reference of books published by these universities, or style of references used in thesis writing, or pattern of research used by these universities. So students, basically this video is for thesis writing, okay, in research methodology, and that's why Harvard and Chicago referencing style, both of these styles are the style of references that we use in thesis writing, and that's why your correct answer should be 3 over here. And the commonly used referencing styles are Harvard and Chicago referencing styles, and both of these styles are common, okay, and they are similar actually. So as we have seen a particular and common referencing style, okay, in this video, in that basically we write first of all the surname of the author, right? First of all we write the surname of the author, then after that we write the name of the author. So it is actually okay if you give only the initial of the name of the author, but you need to write surname of the author as a whole. Then after that write the publication year in the bracket, then write the title of the chapter or article, then write the title of the book or journal, okay. Then after that write the volume number if there is any, then you can write the place where this particular book or journal has been published, then you write the, you can say, page number, okay, page number. So this is the common format of the Harvard and Chicago referencing style. There is only one difference, that in the previous example we have seen that there is no publication year over here. Basically, at that reference, publication year was over here, but in the Harvard and Chicago referencing style, after the surname and author name, you write the publication year in a bracket, and after that only you write the title of chapter or article and then subsequent other things, okay. And that's why Harvard and Chicago referencing style is the style of references that we use in thesis writing. So students, so remember this referencing style, because this is very common referencing style, and on this referencing style every year you will be asking a question, okay. So you need to understand this and you need to remember this. Next is, the following is a format of citing bibliography in research. So now here they have given 4 options. So which of these option, okay, is the format of citing bibliography in research? So whether it is PAA, whether it is e-journal, whether it is OPAC, or whether it is APA. Now students, let us see one by one what are these options. So let us see first of all what is PAA. So the full form of PAA is pattern analysis and application. So basically it examines use of advanced methods including statistical techniques, neural networks, then genetic algorithms, fuzzy pattern recognition, then machine learning and hardware implementation, which are either relevant to development of pattern analysis as research area or detailed novel pattern analysis application. Okay, so in simple words, pattern analysis and application examines use of advanced methods which are either relevant to development of pattern analysis or research area or detailed novel pattern analysis application. That's it. What is e-journal? So as the name suggests, it is an electronic journal. Okay, and it is a periodical publication that is published in electronic format, and it is always published, through internet or on internet. So you will get it in online mode only. What is OPAC? What is this? So the full form of OPAC is online public access catalog. Okay, online public access catalog, and this is a digital database of materials such as text files, then e-books, journals held by library or group of libraries. And the last one is APA. So the full form of APA is actually American Psychological Association. American Psychological Association. Okay, and this is actually this is a format. Okay, this is an official format or style of American Psychological Association and is commonly used to cite bibliography. Okay, cite bibliography in psychology, education and social sciences research. And the format of APA style referencing is that, first of all, you write the author's surname, then give comma, then after that give the initials of author's name, then full stop, then after that write date published in bracket, then after that again give full stop, then write title of source. Title of source means over here you can write the title of chapter or title of article. Then after that again give the full stop, then write the location of publisher, over here title of source. You can also write the title of book or journal as well. Okay, whatever available is there. Then here you can write the location of publisher. Okay, publisher and the name of publisher over here. Then again give full stop, then write the retrieved from URL. Retrieved from URL means over here you can give the URL link from which link you have referred this whole article or whole journal. All of you getting? So this is the common format of APA style. So as you have seen earlier over here, Harvard and Chicago referencing style. So the same style is for APA as well. Okay, so all of these styles are common. There is no any difference, and these are the common referencing style and which is used by everyone. And now next question is, and that's why here your correct answer is 4, APA. Okay, which is a format of citing bibliography in research. Next is a predatory journal is the one whose publishers. So now what is predatory journal and what are the publishers of a predatory journal? So publish for a fee with substandard or no peer reviewing. Then the publishers of journals have acquired the publishers of journals in similar disciplinary domains. Publish without a fee but with proper reviewing. Insist on charging a fee for publishing after the manuscript has been accepted for publication with proper reviewing and editing. So students, a predatory journal has the publishers, okay, these are basically the scam publishers, and they take a fees from the authors, and as well they does not offer any kind of proper reviewing, and as well they actually do a fake work. And that's why your correct answer should be 1, because the publishers of a predatory journal publish for a fee with substandard or no peer reviewing, and that's why this kind of journal is called as a predatory journal, okay, because these publishers are like a scam and they take a fees for nothing from the authors. And that's why you're correct. So now let us start with our today's session. Now the question 1 is, match list 1 with list 2. Choose the correct answer from the given codes. So now here we need to match the list 1 with list 2. Now let us see what are these lists. So in list 1 they have given us the types of hypothesis, I mean to say their names, and in list 2 they have given characteristics of hypothesis. So let us see first of all list 1, descriptive hypothesis, null hypothesis, explanatory hypothesis, and alternative hypothesis. Now let us see list 2. First is aims to explain why particular phenomena work in the way that they do, then aims to describe or define the topic, then predicts no effect or no relationship between variables, then provides a chance of discovering new theories, and here they have given us 4 options. So students, as we have seen earlier videos, that null hypothesis means it's a statement which predicts that there is no effect or there is no relationship between the variables, and that's why null hypothesis will match with option 3 over here. Okay, B will go for 3. Then now let us see alternative hypothesis. So alternative hypothesis is exactly opposite to null hypothesis, and within the alternative hypothesis we predicts that there is an effect or there is a relationship between variables, and that's why alternative hypothesis provides a chance to discover new theories by predicting that there is a relationship between variables, and that's why D option will go for 4. Okay, then now let us see descriptive. So as the name suggests, descriptive, so within the descriptive hypothesis it describes the topic, and that's why A will go for 2, aims to describe or define the topic, and the remaining option is explanatory, C. Obviously it will match with 1, that is aims to explain why particular phenomena work in the way that they do. Okay, that's why your correct answer is 1, that is A is going for 2, B is going for 3, C is going for 1, and D is going for 4. Okay, now next is a hypothesis that states zero difference or no difference between the parameter and its assumed value is known as. So now here they have given us different types of hypothesis. So from this actually types of hypothesis, which is the hypothesis which states that there is zero difference or there is no difference between the parameter and its assumed value. Okay, so whether it is simple hypothesis, whether it is directional hypothesis, whether it is non-directional hypothesis, or whether it is null hypothesis. So obviously students, as we have seen earlier, that it is called as the null hypothesis. Okay, so within the null hypothesis we predict that there is no effect or there is zero difference between the variables under the study. Okay, and that's why your correct answer is 4, that is null hypothesis. Now let us see one by one all the types of hypothesis. Now simple hypothesis is the type of hypothesis under which we predict that there is a existing relationship between the variables. So basically simple hypothesis describes the population exactly. Okay, so it describes the population as it is. Okay, this is the simple hypothesis, or basically simple hypothesis describes the data distribution. Okay, Then next is directional hypothesis. As the name suggests, directional hypothesis. So directional hypothesis predicts both the direction of the results of the hypothesis, and as well it also predicts the relationship between the variables. Okay, and that's why directional hypothesis is the type of alternative hypothesis, okay, under which it can state the direction of the results, and as well it states the relationship between the variables. And non-directional hypothesis is again the type of alternative hypothesis, but here it only gives the prediction about the relationship between the variables. It does not predict about the direction of the results. Okay, so whether it is one-tailed test or two-tailed test, whether it is going to right-tailed or two-tailed, all of right-tailed or left-tailed. Okay, this is actually the non-directional hypothesis. Okay, and that's why whenever we need to test the directional hypothesis, then for that we do the two-tailed test. Okay, two-tailed test. And for non-directional hypothesis, okay, for testing this kind of hypothesis, we opt for one-tailed test. All of you getting? And that's why your correct answer is 4. Next is hypothesis that is alternative to null hypothesis is represented as. Now the hypothesis which is alternative to null hypothesis, or which is opposite to null hypothesis, is represented as what? Whether it is H0 or H1 or H ALT or H is not equal to 0. So basically students, null hypothesis suggest that or predict that there is zero relationship between the variables, and that's why the alternative hypothesis to null hypothesis predicts that there is the relationship between the variables. All of you getting? And that's why this kind of hypothesis is called as the alternative hypothesis, or it is also called as the research hypothesis. Okay, and it is denoted by H1 or HA. Okay, all of you getting? And that's why here your correct answer is H1, because alternative hypothesis is denoted by H1, not HALT. So most of the students make mistake in these denotations, but your correct answer is H1 or HA. But here HA option is not given, and that's why your correct answer should be H1. A statement made about a population for testing purpose is called. Okay, so whenever we make a statement about a population for testing purpose, then that statement is called as what? Whether it is called as statistic, whether hypothesis, whether level of significance, or test statistic. So obviously students, it is called as hypothesis, because as I have told you in the previous videos that hypothesis is a statement of prediction. In that basically we predict the results of the research problem, right? And that's why hypothesis is a kind of statement, and we make this a statement based upon the population itself, and by making the hypothesis we can test it. Okay, and that's why it is called as the hypothesis. Okay, and level of significance is the concept which comes under the testing part of hypothesis. Okay, so basically level of significance can be denoted by alpha. So whenever the values of alpha is really very low, then your test results will be more significant. And I have told you in the previous videos when we were seeing about hypothesis testing part. I hope all of you understood these kinds of concept. If not, then you can watch that video. Okay, so students, now what is statistic? So statistic actually includes the lots of data sets, and we need to test those data sets. Okay, this is nothing but the statistic concept. And test statistic means the type of statistical techniques by which we can test the hypothesis. For example, students, t-test is the test statistic, chi-square test is the test statistic, like that. Okay, and that's why here the correct answer is 2, that is hypothesis. If the assumed hypothesis is tested for rejection considering it to be true is called. So whenever the assumed hypothesis is tested for its rejection and as well considering that it is true, then it is called as what? So whether it is called as null hypothesis, statistical hypothesis, simple hypothesis, or composite hypothesis. So students, as I have told you in the previous videos as well, there is only the one hypothesis which is called as the null hypothesis, and that only we are going to test. Okay, we don't test other types of hypothesis in the research process. All of you getting? And that's why your correct answer should be 1, because basically null hypothesis predicts that there is the zero relationship between the variables, and for that only we need to test the null hypothesis so that we can reject it. And after rejection of null hypothesis, we can automatically accept the alternative hypothesis which predicts that there is a relationship between the variables. All of you getting? And that's why if the assumed hypothesis is tested for rejection considering it to be true, then it is called as the null hypothesis. Okay? Statistical hypothesis is the type of hypothesis into which basically this hypothesis is tested based upon the sample. Okay, it is tested based upon the sample. Okay, simple hypothesis simply suggest or the relationship which is there already between the variables, and that's why simple hypothesis only describes the distribution of the data under the population under study. And what is composite hypothesis? Okay, so composite hypothesis is again the type of hypothesis, and in this basically hypothesis we don't actually assign the values of the variables. So basically we don't understand exactly the values of variables under the composite hypothesis. All of you getting? And it is called as the composite hypothesis, and that's why here your correct answer is null hypothesis. Next, a statement whose validity is tested on the basis of a sample is called. Now this kind of concept we have seen in the previous question, that so what is the type of hypothesis whose validity is tested based on the sample? Okay, so whether it is null hypothesis or statistical hypothesis or simple hypothesis or composite hypothesis. As I have told you earlier that it is called as the statistical hypothesis. So statistical hypothesis is the statement whose validity is tested on the basis of a sample. Okay, and that's why it is called as the statistical hypothesis. Okay, and I hope all of you understood exactly what is null hypothesis, then simple hypothesis and composite hypothesis. And one more thing is that I know the concept of composite hypothesis is little bit difficult to understand, but here actually you can't exactly give the numerical value, okay, to the null hypothesis specifically. In the composite hypothesis you can only give the information about the null hypothesis. You can only basically give the information about the variables, but you can't exactly assign the value to the variables under study. All of you getting? And basically this kind of statement whenever we make regarding null hypothesis or alternative hypothesis, then that kind of hypothesis will be called as composite hypothesis. All of you getting? Okay, and that's why your correct answer over here is statistical hypothesis, which is a statement whose validity is tested on the basis of a sample. Now next is a hypothesis which defines the population distribution is called. Now From these types of hypothesis, which is the hypothesis which defines the population distribution? So whether it is null hypothesis, whether it is statistical hypothesis, simple or composite hypothesis. So obviously it is called as the simple hypothesis. So simple hypothesis only defines the population distribution. For example, there is an existing relationship between the variables, then simple hypothesis only defines the relationship between the variables. That's it, and that's why it is called as the simple hypothesis, because it's very simple. Okay. Now next, if the null hypothesis is false, then which of the following is accepted? Now this is the easiest question. When there is null hypothesis and which is false, okay, then after that what type of hypothesis we accept? Whether we accept again null hypothesis, whether we accept positive hypothesis, whether we accept negative hypothesis, or whether we accept alternative hypothesis. So obviously students, whenever the null hypothesis is false, then in that situation we automatically accept the alternative hypothesis, and that's why your correct answer is 4, that is alternative hypothesis. The type of test is defined by which of the following? So from which of the following hypothesis types the type of test is defined? Okay, type of test means what kind of test you are going to do in your whole research process is defined, and as well what kind of variables there will be, what kind of relationship between the variables there will be, we are going to define. Okay, so whether it is null hypothesis, whether it is simple hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, or composite hypothesis. So from these hypothesis types, now you will understand that there is only the alternative hypothesis under which we exactly predict that the relationship between the variables, right? And that's why this is only the hypothesis type by which type of test is defined. Okay, and that's why your correct answer over here is 3, that is alternative hypothesis, and the remaining options get eliminated. Those are null hypothesis, simple hypothesis, and composite hypothesis. Okay. Now next is alternative hypothesis is also called as. So what is the different name for alternative hypothesis? Whether it is composite hypothesis, research hypothesis, simple hypothesis, or null hypothesis. As I have told you earlier in this video that alternative hypothesis is also called as research hypothesis, and that's why the correct answer is 2, that is research hypothesis. Okay, so now let us start with our today's session. Now the question 1 is, sampling is advantageous as it dash. So why students sampling is advantageous? Why we do the sampling in research? Okay, so because it saves time, because it helps in capital saving, because both 1 and 2, that is saves time and helps in capital saving or increases accuracies. Okay, so students, your correct answer is 3, that is both saves time and helps in capital saving. So first of all students, there is a target population and every researcher wants to study the target population, but it includes lot of participants, and that's why no one can study lot of participants in a minimum amount of time, and that's why we do the sampling, so that we can select samples from the target population which will be the representative of the target population, right? And basically sampling is advantageous because it saves our time, and as well it helps in capital saving, because sampling does not include that much amount of people, and that's why we don't need that much amount of funding for doing the data collection, and that's why it helps in capital saving as well. That's why your correct answer should be 3. Okay, next is, which of the following are popular complex random sampling designs? So which of these are the popular complex random sampling designs? So random sampling designs are basically nothing but the probability sampling techniques. Okay, and under this sampling technique, a researcher actually randomly selects the participants from the target population. So let us see here different options: systematic sampling, then stratified sampling, then simple sampling, then cluster sampling, then basic sampling. So students, your correct answer over here should be 2, that is A, B and D. Okay, because A, B and D, these are the complex random sampling designs. Okay, complex means there is many steps and it is basically opposite than simple random sampling. So let me explain you why. So within the systematic sampling technique, there is a heterogeneous population or homogeneous population, and in this population what we do, we actually have a, for example, finite population. For example, I have 100 number of people in a population and I need to select the samples. So what I will do over here, I will divide these 100 number of people into equal intervals. For example, I will do 1 to 10 interval, then 11 to 20 interval. So like this I will do up to 100 number interval. Okay, then first of all I will select randomly any number from this 1 to 10. For example, if I select 7 number, then in every next interval I am going to select 7th number. So for example, between 11 to 20 I will select 17. Between 21 to 30 I am going to select 27. So firstly I am going to randomly select 7 number, then after that in each interval I am going to select the nth number. Okay, all of you getting? And this is called as a systematic sampling, but it is random sampling design, because at the first time I am going to select the sample randomly over here. Okay, and that's why it is called as the complex random sampling design, because here we are going to do lots of procedures, and as well we are going to do the procedures by using randomly selecting the sample, and that's why this is complex random sampling design. Next is stratified sampling. Now stratified sampling actually is done when there is obviously the heterogeneous population, whenever population includes lots of characteristics of people. Okay, or people which have the lots of characteristics, I mean to say different characteristics. So for example, here I have heterogeneous population. So what I am going to do is I am going to divide this population into different subgroups. For example, S1 subgroup, S2, S3, like that, and I am going to select the samples randomly from each subgroup, and after that finally I will make a sample. Okay, this would be the stratified sampling technique. So here as well I am going to select the samples randomly, and that's why this is random sampling design. And over here as well I am going to use different kind of procedures. Okay, and that's why this is complex random sampling design. Okay, now next is cluster sampling. So within the cluster sampling, again there is a lots of amount of population, and basically it is heterogeneous population, and again here I am going to divide the whole population into different subgroups like S1, S2, S3, but over here I am going to select whole subgroup from these subgroups randomly. For example, I will select randomly S1 subgroup, I will select randomly S4 subgroup. Okay, and then finally I will make a sample. Okay, so this is called as the cluster sampling, and that's why this is as well the complex random sampling design. And within the simple sampling, there is only the way that we are only selecting the samples randomly from the whole population. This is the only one process or step we are going to do in simple random sampling technique, and that's why this is only the simple random sampling technique, not a complex random sampling technique. And that's why your correct answer should be 2 over here, that is A, B, D only, because over here systematic sampling, stratified sampling and cluster sampling, all of these are the complex random sampling designs. Okay, next, random sampling is helpful as it is dash. So why random sampling design is helpful? Because it is reasonably accurate, because it is free from personal biases, because it is an economical method of data collection, because all of the above. So students, as I have told you earlier in the question 2, that within the random sampling technique we are going to select the samples randomly from the whole population, and that's why it is reasonably accurate, because we are going to select the samples randomly, so we don't know exactly whether we are going toward the specific characteristic or not. Basically here we can select all the kinds of people from the target population, okay, which include lots of characteristics, and that's why it is reasonably accurate. And as well here there is no any kind of biases that researcher can do, because here researcher don't know the identity of the participants, and that too researcher is selecting the samples randomly from the target population, right? And that's why it is bias free. So again, this is one of the advantages of it. And as well, this is the economical method of data collection, because here researcher can target the lots of number of population, and as well it saves the time, it saves the capital as well, okay. And that's why this is the economical method of data collection. So this is again the helpful thing of it, and that's why your correct answer should be 4, that is all of the above, okay. Next, that dash is a preferred sampling method for the population with finite size. So from these sampling techniques, which is the preferred sampling technique for the population with finite size? So whether it is systematic sampling, whether it is purposive sampling, whether it is cluster sampling, or whether it is area sampling. So as I have told you earlier in this video, that in the systematic sampling technique we know the size of the population. That means the size of the population is finite over here, and that's why we are able to make the intervals of the whole population, like 1 to 10, 10 to 20, and that's why whenever the population size is finite, then our preferred sampling method is systematic sampling, okay, which is a random sampling technique. Now what is purposive sampling? So purposive sampling is the non-probability sampling technique, because here researcher don't use the random sampling method technique. So here researcher don't randomly select the participants from the target population. Here researcher have a specific kind of characteristic in mind, and based upon that characteristic only researcher selects the preferred participants, okay. And that's why here researcher don't understand exactly the population is finite or not. Actually, whether the population is finite or infinite, it does not matter in this case, okay, because researcher only want those participants who has the specific characteristics that researcher want in his or her study, okay. That's why this option gets eliminated. Now cluster sampling. So as I have told you earlier, that within the cluster sampling the population is heterogeneous, and as well there is lots of number of people under the population. So maybe the population includes infinite number of people, and that's why this also gets eliminated. Area sampling is again the subtype of cluster sampling only. As I have told you earlier, within the cluster sampling we are going to divide the target population into subgroups like S1, S2, S3, and we are going to randomly select these subgroups, okay. And here these subgroups are basically the areas, I mean to say geographical areas. For example, within India I want to do some study regarding geographical areas, so I will do the subgroups like Maharashtra will be my first subgroup, then Rajasthan will be second subgroup, like that. So I am going to make the subgroups based upon the state, and I am going to select the each and every subgroup randomly over here, okay. And this is nothing but the area sampling. And here as well you can understand that we don't know the size of the population. Here the population size is infinite actually, okay, like in cluster sampling, and that's why this option gets eliminated. So your correct answer is systematic sampling. Next, which one is called non-probability sampling? So here they have given us different types of sampling techniques, and we need to identify the type of non-probability sampling technique. So whether it is quota sampling, or whether it is cluster sampling, whether it is systematic sampling, or whether it is stratified sampling. So students, now if you read these sampling techniques, then you will understand that cluster sampling is the random sampling, then systematic sampling is again random sampling, stratified is again random sampling. So all of these options get eliminated, and that's why your correct answer is quota sampling. So quota sampling is the non-probability sampling, because within the quota sampling, researcher selects the participants who has the specific characteristics, and that's why here all of the samples selected has the specific common characteristics. Okay, we share basically the specific common characteristics only, and that's why this is the non-probability sampling technique. Next, which of the following sampling technique is appropriate to study the prevalence of AIDS amongst male and female in India in 1976, 1986, then 1996 and 2006? So which of this sampling technique would you use, okay, whenever you need to study the prevalence of AIDS against male and female candidates in India in the year 1976, 1986, 1996, 2006? So students, you will go for systematic sampling. So let me explain why. So within the systematic sampling, we know the size of the population, right, which is finite. So now here researcher wants to understand the prevalence of AIDS, right, amongst male and female candidates in India, and as well here it has mentioned some years like 1976, 1986, 1996 and 2006. So each and every year India announces the population of the people in India in that year, right? So for example, researcher knows the population size of India in 1976 year, as well 1986 year, 1996 year and 2006 year. So what researcher will do now? Researcher over here now make a group of people, okay, and he will now categorize all the target population between different intervals. So he will first of all make the intervals of year 1976, then he will make the intervals of year 1986, of 1996 and of 2006 year. Then after that he will randomly choose the sample, okay, in the first interval. Then after that he will choose the samples every nth interval in the subsequent intervals, and finally he will make a proper sample, okay, finally, and then accordingly he will study by using this sample only. So why researcher will follow this sampling technique? Because from this sampling technique researcher can reach both the types of gender like male and female, and as well researcher can study each and every year, okay, like 76, 86, 96 and 2006, okay, and that's why he will be able to target each and every year and as well each and every gender, and that's why here the study will be more accurate, because here he is addressing most of the accurate sample, okay, and that's why he can use such sampling technique, and this sampling technique will saves the time of the researcher. So within the quota sampling, researcher actually uses the particular characteristic of people, and accordingly he select that kind of people who has that characteristic. But over here researcher don't know exactly who has AIDS and who has not. That's why this sampling technique won't be useful over here. Within cluster sampling technique, basically researcher, what does he actually randomly select the subgroups from the target population. But over here the target population is not actually infinite, it is finite, and this technique as well won't be useful. Within the stratified random sampling, researcher makes the subgroups and randomly then select the samples. But actually this is the useful, but this is not preferred sampling technique, because systematic sampling technique will be more preferred than stratified random sampling. So this again gets eliminated. That's why your correct answer should be 3, which is systematic sampling. Okay. Which one of the following principles is not applicable to sampling? Now here they have given certain principles of sampling techniques, and which is the principle which is not applicable to sampling technique. So whether it is sample units must be clearly defined, whether it is sampling units must be dependent on each other, whether it is same units of sample should be used throughout the study, whether it is sample units must be chosen in a systematic or objective manner. So your correct answer should be 2, because sample units must not be dependent on each other. When sample units are dependent on each other, then that sampling technique would be unethical, and as well it would be biased. Okay, because the sample units are dependent on each other. Okay, and that's why this is the principle which is not applicable to sampling. Sample units must be clearly defined. Yes, this is one of the principle which is applicable to sampling. As well, same units of sample should be used throughout the study. When we use different units, then obviously our results won't be accurate, right? So this is again the one of the principle which is applicable to sampling. Sample units must be chosen in a systematic and objective manner. So again, this is one of the principle of sampling technique, because we need to actually do all the procedures in a systematic and objective manner. Okay. Next, suppose you want to investigate the working efficiency of nationalized bank in India. Which one of the following would you follow? Now a researcher, or for example I want to investigate the working efficiency of nationalized bank in India. So for that I need to collect the data. Okay, and for that I need to select the samples. So for selecting the sample, which sampling technique I need to follow? Whether I need to follow area sampling, whether I need to follow quota sampling, or sequential sampling, or multi-stage sampling. So students, in such situations I will follow the multi-stage sampling. So let me explain why. So basically multi-stage sampling is a sampling technique which is the subtype of cluster sampling technique. So here actually the sampling selection or the selection of samples basically occurs based upon different stages. Okay, multiple stages. So let me explain how. So now here I want to investigate the working efficiency of nationalized bank in India, right? And that's why I need to identify the nationalized banks in India. Okay, so for example SBI is one of the nationalized bank of India. Then again Baroda Bank is one of the National Bank of India. Okay, then Punjab National Bank is again one of the National Bank of India, right? And here India, okay, has lots of population, though I know that the population is finite. Okay, but still actually here I need to investigate the working efficiency, right? So whether the population is finite or not won't actually matter over here. I need to know the working efficiency only. Okay, and within India there are lots of states, and in each state there are lots of districts, there are lots of towns, right? And I need to reach every area. So firstly what I will do, I will make the subgroup of India into different states. Okay, then within the different states I will make the subgroups of districts. Then within the districts I will make subgroups of towns or villages, and subsequently I will make the I will basically choose the nationalized bank, and after that then I will investigate the working efficiency of that specific nationalized bank. And that's why this technique would be more efficient, because by using this technique I can reach the each and every nationalized bank in India, so that I can investigate their working efficiency more accurately. Okay, that's why I will use this sampling technique, which is called as multi-stage. It is called as multi-stage because over here you can see I have selected the samples between the multiple stages. Like I have made the states, okay, groups, then I have made the groups of districts, then at the last I have made the groups of towns or villages. Okay, now I have explained you what is area sampling, I have explained you what is quota sampling. Now what is sequential sampling? As the name suggests over here, it is sequential. So basically it includes lot of sequences. Okay, for example, whenever researcher don't know exactly whether the particular sampling technique will be feasible or not, then in such kind of sampling techniques he will first of all use a minimum amount of participants in his or her sampling technique, and after that if he finds that that particular sampling technique is feasible or whether he is getting a accurate kind of data, then after that again he will select the samples. So here researcher basically sequentially selecting the samples, all of you getting, and that's why here your correct answer should be 4, that is multi-stage sampling technique. When a research problem is related to heterogeneous population, the most suitable sampling method is, now here when there is a heterogeneous population, then what type of sampling method a researcher should follow, whether it is lottery method, whether it is cluster sampling, or whether it is stratified sampling or convenient sampling. Now all of you understood that in such kind of situation you need to follow stratified sampling technique, because there is a heterogeneous population which includes the people who has different characteristics, and that's why over here we need to make the subgroups of this heterogeneous population, and I am going to select the samples randomly from each subgroup, all of you getting. Okay, and that's why whenever there is a heterogeneous population, then stratified sampling technique will be more feasible. Okay, what is lottery method? So now lottery method is the random sampling technique, and in such sampling method we are going to select the numbers randomly, and here we are going to assign each number to the subject, all of you getting, or you are going to assign each number to the each participant. Okay, and accordingly I am going to select such numbers randomly, and that's why this is the random sampling technique. Then all of you understood now cluster sampling. Then convenient sampling technique is again the non-probability sampling technique, and here a researcher actually based upon his or her convenience select the samples. For example, a researcher is in a university, okay, on a Tuesday, then he will select the participants who are there in the college on that day only. Okay, then he won't do any other practices over there. Okay, so based upon his or her convenience, researchers select the samples, and that's why it is called as the convenient sampling technique. Okay, now next, which of the following sampling methods is based on probability? Now here they have asked you exactly which is the sampling technique from these sampling techniques is the probability sampling technique. So whether it is quota sampling, whether it is stratified sampling, whether it is judgment sampling, or whether it is convenience sampling. Okay, so now all of you understood that there is only one sampling technique, which is stratified sampling technique, it is the probability sampling technique. Okay, and all others are non-probability sampling technique. So now all of you understood what is quota sampling, what is convenience sampling. So now let us see what is judgment sampling. So judgment sampling technique is also called as the purposive sampling technique. So here researcher has a specific purpose towards the participant, and that's why he purposively selects that participant only. Okay, in some cases actually researcher wants the more secure or sensitive information, and that's why researcher purposively wants those participants only who will be provide that sensitive information to the researcher, right? and that's why it is called as the judgment or purposive sampling technique, which is again the non probability sampling technique. And that's why here your correct answer should be 2. The question 1 is, for the study of any population, sampling is conducted because it is dash. So basically students, whenever a researcher wants to study any population, then for studying that particular population, he does the sampling. Sampling means what? Taking out some samples from the population for the study. And why we do this? Okay, why this is essential? What is the reason behind it? So whether it is expensive, whether it is difficult, whether it is time efficient, or whether it is biased. So students, whenever you see these options, then you will understand that whenever some technique is expensive, then why a researcher will use it, right? Then it will be a disadvantage for him. So this will get eliminated. Whenever a technique is difficult, then obviously no one follow it. Okay, whenever a technique is easy, then obviously one can follow it, and that's why this option also is the disadvantage. So this option gets eliminated. And as well, whenever there is a biased technique, then because of that there will be unethical issues in the research, and that's why no one want this. So this again gets eliminated as it is disadvantageous, and that's why your correct answer should be 3, because over here time efficient is one of the advantage of sampling technique, because a researcher can study whole population at a time, because it includes lot of participants, and that's why it will require a lot of time and funding for a researcher to study all the participants in the target population. And that's why he uses sampling technique, so that he can properly select some samples from the population which are the representative of the whole population, and it will be time efficient. And as well, researcher does not does not want lots of funding. So your correct answer should be 3 over here. Next, what is a sample called if it represents one or few characteristics of the population more than the others? So whenever we select a sample, okay, from the target population, and whenever that particular sample represents one or more than that characteristics of the population, okay, more than the other samples, okay, then what such kind of sample is called? Whether it is called as good sample, bad sample, biased sample, ineffective sample. So students, such samples are called as biased samples, because it has more than one characteristics of the population, okay, than the other samples, okay, because it means that researchers selectively selected such samples, okay, because they have these characteristics, and researcher over here has not randomly selected the samples, and researcher has done a biased over here, and that's why this sample has been selected, okay, and that's why it is called as the biased sample. Okay, why are sampling triads important in sampling? So within the sampling technique, why sampling triads means sampling characteristics are important. So first of all, they help us in deciding the sample size. They help us to differentiate between useless units and useful units, or they form the basis of the research questions, or they are the deciding factor in the inclusion of a unit in the sample. So basically students, the characteristics of samples are really most important things, because these characteristics of the samples are the representative of the target population, and that's why because of these characteristics only we select the samples from the target population, and that's why this would be the deciding factor. Okay, based on that factor basically we decide whether we want to select that particular sample in our study or not, and that's why it is very important in sampling, and that's why your correct answer should be 4, because they are the deciding factor in the inclusion of a unit in the sample. Okay, which of the following is true about sampling? Now here they have given us some statements regarding sampling, and we need to identify the true statement about sampling. So whether it is sample is a part of population, sampling saves time, money and energy, sampling helps in estimating sampling error, all of the above. So students, the correct answer over here is all of the above, because basically sample is a part of population, because samples are the units that we actually select from the population itself, and that's why obviously sample is a part of population. So this statement is true. Again, as I have told you earlier in this video, that because of sampling, researcher can save lot of amount of time, as well researcher can save lots of money and as well energy. Okay, that's why this again statement is true about sampling. And as well, sampling helps in estimating sampling error. Basically sampling error causes because of the mistakenly chosen wrong sample size, and as well whenever we use wrong sampling methods, then again because of that sampling error occurs, and we are going to see in detail in the next part of this video, so don't worry. But basically sampling actually helps us in estimating the sampling error itself. That's why this statement is again correct about this. That's why your correct answer should be 4, because all of these statements are true about sampling. Next is sampling cases means. Now what is the meaning of sampling cases? Okay, so whether it is sampling using a sampling frames, whether it is identifying people who are suitable for research, whether it is literally the researcher's briefcase, or whether it is sampling of people, newspapers, television programs, etc. So basically students, you need to think about these words, sampling and cases. So sampling means, sampling techniques means we are selecting samples from the population, right? What are cases? Basically cases means what? Cases means particular people, individual. Okay, cases can be anything, incident, any objects. Okay, that's why sampling cases means the case that we have selected as a sample, okay, from the target population. So basically it could be anything, it could be a person, it could be people, it could be any kind of objects. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be over here 4, because sampling of people, sampling of newspapers, sampling of television programs, sampling of incidents, sampling of certain objects, so these are the sampling cases. Okay, next, the aggregate of all the units pertaining to a study is called. So whenever you do the total of all the units which is relevant to a study, okay, basically to a research study, so what we call it as, whether we call it as population or universe, or whether we call it as unit, or whether we call it as sample, or whether we call it as frame. So basically students, it is called as the population or universe, because population comprises of all the units, right, which includes it, right, or universe includes all the units which are actually basically the part of the universe, right? And that's why whole population or whole universe includes all the units which are relevant to a research study. So whenever you aggregate all these units, then obviously you will form a whole population or universe. That's why your correct answer should be 1. Next, dash refers to those elements from which samples are specifically chosen or selected for research. So from which type of population basically we choose samples for research. So whether it is finite population, whether it is target population, whether it is infinite population, whether it is sampling population. So obviously students, now all of you understood that the correct answer should be 2nd, that is target population. Okay, so understand over here that whenever a researcher wants to study any kind of a population, then that population would be a target population for that researcher, because researcher only intends to target that population only, and researcher wants to only study on that population, not other population. All of you getting? And that's why it would be a target population for that specific researcher, and from the target population basically researcher selects some samples for the study. Okay, what is exactly finite population? Finite population means we know the number of participants in the population, which has finite number of people in the population. What is infinite population? Infinite population includes infinite amount of people. We don't know the exact number of people in that population. What is sampling population? Sampling population is again the population, okay, which actually includes the samples for the study, but basically the concept is that target population refers to those elements from which samples are specifically chosen or selected for research, not from the sampling population. So try to understand, students, and that's why your correct answer should be 2, that is target population. Next is a member of the population is called. Now a particular member of the population is called what? Whether it is called as element, data, family, group. So now all of you understood that whenever there is a member of the population, then obviously it is either called as a unit or element, and that's why your correct answer should be 1. Okay, the population to be sampled is divided into units which are known as. Okay, so whenever a population that would be sampled in future, okay, is divided into different kinds of units, so what are those called as? So whether it is called as sampling frame or sampling error or sampling gap or sampling units, obviously it is called as the sampling units because these are the units, right? So for example, I have 1000 people of population, and this population is need to be sampled, and that's why it is divided into different units. Okay, S1, S2, S3, S4. So these are the 4 units. So basically this is called as one of the sampling unit, this is called as another sampling unit, this is called as sampling unit, this is called as sampling unit, and that's why your correct answer should be 4 over here. Okay, and a sampling frame basically is the frame, okay, from or you can say which includes all the samples that already we have selected for a study. So this is called as the sampling frame. But sampling units basically includes the units, okay, of the population to be sampled. Okay, and it does not give the guarantee that it includes all the participants which are selected for the study, but sampling frame includes all the population or participants which are selected for the study. And all of you now understood that error, here the sampling error causes because of the wrong selection of sample size, and as well because of the wrong selection of the sampling technique that we are going to see in the next video, so don't worry. And sampling gap means the gap which is there between the sampling procedures. Okay, next, which of the following are steps in sampling process? Now here they have given some steps of sampling process, and we need to find out exactly which of these are the steps in sampling process, whether they are defining target population, whether selecting and identifying the sample method, or choosing sampling frame, or all of the above. So students, all of these basically are the steps in sampling process. So first of all, we need to define the target population, which is the most important step, and after that we need to select the sample from the population, and for that we need to identify which type of sampling method we need to choose, whether we need to choose probability sampling method or we need to choose non probability sampling procedure. We are going to see this things in the next part of this video, so don't worry. And as well we need to choose the sampling frame that I have told you earlier, right, which includes what? Sampling frame basically includes all the participants which are selected for the study. Okay, and that's why all of these are the steps in sampling process. So that's why your correct answer should be over here 4. Okay, so let us see step by step what are the different steps in sequence in sampling process. So first of all, you need to define the target population. What would be your target population? Okay, then you need to decide exactly what type of sampling method you are going to use, whether you are going to use probability sampling method or non-probability sampling method. Then select, okay, the sampling frame or choose the sampling frame. Okay, so these are basically the steps in sequence, okay, in sampling process. Okay, that's why your correct answer should be 4. A t-test consists of n pairs of observations. What is the number of degrees of freedom for the test? So here they have given us that there is a pair t-test and it consists of n numbers of observations, okay, n pairs of observations basically, and we need to find out the number of degrees of freedom. So students, degrees of freedom, this concept is really important in the statistical tests, because through the degrees of freedom only we can find out the results of test statistic. Okay, and degrees of freedom means that free entities or free pieces of information, okay, of the data, and this is really very much important. So for pair t-test, the formula for degree of freedom is df is equal to n minus 1, where n is the number or pairs of observations, and that's why your correct answer over here should be 3, because the correct answer is n minus 1, which is the formula for degrees of freedom in pair t-test. Next, students, t-test was designed by. Now here they have given the names of different scientists, and we need to find out the name of the scientist who has given or designed a student's t-test. So whether he is R.A. Fisher or Wilcoxon or Wald Wolfo Wids or W.S. Gossett. So basically students, this student's t-test, okay, this is referred to as technique for testing theory of mean, okay, for testing theory of mean of small sample which is taken from population with normally distributed distribution, okay, when standard deviation of provided population is unknown. So basically we use this student's t-test whenever the distribution of data within the population is normal, and as well we don't know about the standard deviation of it, and here we need to find out the differences in the mean of the samples, okay, and this is the technique, and this is basically designed by William Silly Gossett, okay, and that's why your correct answer should be for W.S. Gossett. And the formula for students t-test is equal to x1 bar minus x2 bar upon under root s square in bracket 1 upon n1 plus 1 upon n2. Okay, so here x1 bar is the mean of sample 1 or group 1, x2 bar is the mean of sample 2 or group 2, s square is the standard deviation value if they have given. Then basically here the actually value of standard deviation is unknown, but here is the formula is like this, and n1 is the total number of samples for group 1 or sample 1, then n2 is the total number of samples for group 2 or sample 2. Okay, all of you getting, students? And there are different types of t-test, such as pair t-test is there, and in the pair t-test groups are drawn from same population. Okay, then two sample t-test, here groups are drawn from two different population, and in one sample t-test group is being compared against only standard value. Okay, but here your correct answer should be 4. Okay, next, which one among the following statement is true in the context of the testing of hypothesis? Okay, so here they have given us different statements regarding the testing of hypothesis part, and we need to find out the true statement which is relevant to the testing of hypothesis concept. So the first statement is, it is only the alternative hypothesis that can be tested. It is only the null hypothesis that can be tested. Both the alternative and the null hypothesis can be tested. both the alternative and null hypothesis cannot be tested. So students, we formulate hypothesis so that we can test it, okay, and that's why there is the a permission, or you can say there is a rule, okay, that we need to test the hypothesis in any kind of a research process, and here we only test the null hypothesis, okay, because whenever we accept the null hypothesis, okay, then in that case we are going to reject the alternative hypothesis, and whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then in that case we are going to accept the alternative hypothesis, and that's why there is need to only test only one hypothesis, and which is null hypothesis, okay. So this is the most important concept in testing part of hypothesis, because we need to know exactly what type of hypothesis we are going to test, and here is the answer, that is 2, which is we are going to test only null hypothesis, okay. Next, goodness of fit of a distribution is tested by. Now goodness of fit of a distribution is tested by which statistical technique? So whether it is t-test or f-test or chi-square test or z-test, okay. So students, let us see first of all what is goodness of fit of a distribution. So goodness of fit is basically a test, and this is a statistical technique, okay, and here we see how well sample data fit a distribution from population with normal distribution, exactly, okay, and there are lots of methods to determine goodness of fit test. So one of them is chi-square test, okay, chi-square test. Then the another test is Kolmogorov Smirnov test, okay, Kolmogorov Smirnov test. Then next is Anderson Darling test, and next is Shapiro Wilk test, okay. So students, you need not to remember all these tests, but only remember the chi-square test over here, because this is the most commonly used test to test for goodness of fit of a distribution, okay, and that's why here your correct answer should be chi-square test, okay. Now over here, t-test, f-test and z-test, okay, all of these 3 tests are the parametric test, and chi-square test is the non-parametric test, okay. So by using a t-test, basically we can find out exactly whether there is a significant difference between the groups or not, okay. F-test basically is based upon the F statistic, and F statistic is nothing but the ratio between 2 independent chi-square variates, okay, that are divided by their respective degree of freedom, okay. So here basically F test lets us know exactly the differences between the variances between the 2 groups, okay. And Z test is again similar to T test, and by using Z test as well we can find out the means of the differences between the 2 groups, but over here we know exactly what is the standard deviation of the population. And as well, Z test is a way to figure out if results from test are valid or repeatable, okay. So it is similar to T test only, and that's why your correct answer over here should be 3, that is chi-square test. Next is arrange the following steps in the process of hypothesis testing in proper sequence. Now over here they have given us the steps of a hypothesis testing, and we need to keep an order, or we need to show the proper sequence of these processes of hypothesis testing. So now let us see what are the different steps they have given us. Select the level of significance, then set up null and alternative hypothesis, establish the decision rule, then performance computations, then select test statistics, then draw conclusion. So students, now I am going to tell you exactly the proper sequence of process of hypothesis testing. So your first step should be set up null and alternative hypothesis, okay. So first of all we need to set up the null and alternative hypothesis. Then your second step should be select significance level. Select significance level. Okay. Then third step should be select test statistics. Select test statistics. Okay. Then fourth step should be establish decision rule. Establish decision rule. Then fifth is performance computation. Okay, performance computation. Then sixth one is draw conclusion. Okay, draw conclusion. So now whenever you see this sequence, then you will understand that your correct answer should be 4, that is B, A, E, C, D, F, because here set up null and alternative hypothesis is first step, which is your option B. Okay, then after that select the level of significance, which will be your second step, which is option A. Then again select test statistics will be E option. Then establish the decision rule is C option. Then performance computations D option, and draw conclusion F option, and that's why your correct answer should be 4. Okay. Next, which among the following are non-parametric statistics? So over here they have given us some names of non-parametric statistics, and we need to identify from this list what are those non-parametric statistics. So t-test, f-test, Spearman's rank order correlation, Mann-Whitney Wilcoxon test, or Kindle coefficient of concordance. Okay, so students, as I have told you earlier in the previous videos, that there are basically two types of tests, and those are parametric and non-parametric tests. And parametric tests basically based upon certain assumptions about the population, but non-parametric test does not assume any assumptions regarding the population. Basically non-parametric test follows a distribution free population. Okay, so from these list, Spearman's rank order correlation, Mann-Whitney Wilcoxon test, and Kindle coefficient of concordance, these are the types of non-parametric statistics. And t-test and f-test that I have told you earlier in this video, these are the parametric tests. Okay, so now let us see exactly what are these. So now this Spearman's rank correlation basically assesses how well there is the relationship between two variables can be described by using monotonic function. Monotonic function means by using only single function. Okay, or you can say here whatever we use actually is the rank order. So basically here there is lots of data, and we give the ranking to the data, and based upon the ranking we are going to do the testing over here. Okay, and next is Mann-Whitney Wilcoxon test. This is the alternative test for unpaired t-test. Okay, unpaired t-test is there, which is a parametric test, and if because of certain assumptions we can't able to do this parametric test, then alternatively instead of this we can follow Mann-Whitney Wilcoxon test. Okay, and the last one is Kindle coefficient of concordance. This is again the test which is non-parametric, and it is used for assessing agreement among raters basically. Okay, and that's why here your correct answer should be 4, that is C, D and E only. Okay, next, kinked demand curve hypothesis was put forward by. So here they have given the names of certain scientists, and we need to identify the name of that scientist who has given the concept of kinked demand curve hypothesis. So let us see different options. Paul M. Sweezy, Augustine Cournot, Bert Rand, then Stackelberg. So first of all, let us see exactly what is the kinked demand curve hypothesis. Okay, so basically this kinked demand curve, okay, this illustrates interdependence of firms in an oligopoly market. Okay, so there is an oligopoly market. Okay, oligopoly market, And here, by using this curve, we can illustrate the interdependence of firms in this market. Okay, and there is a kink at level of prevailing price. So when there is a level of prevailing price, then at that level there will be a kink. Okay, and there is kink which exists, okay, because there are certain reasons behind it. So what are those reasons? So the first reason is segment above prevailing price level is highly elastic. So when there is a level of prevailing price, okay, so after that price, when there is highly elastic behavior, okay, so that's why there is kink. And the second reason is segment below prevailing price level is inelastic. Okay, so there is a segment below prevailing price level and which is inelastic, and because of that there is kink. Okay, but you need to understand over here only the correct answer is Paul M. Sweezy, and this is the scientist who has given the concept of kinked demand curve hypothesis. Okay, next is which test we normally apply for qualitative data. So whenever we need to test the qualitative data, then for that which kind of test we normally apply. So whether it is t test, whether it is f test, whether it is chi-square test or z test. So basically students, when there is a qualitative data which is only in the picture or word format, and whenever we are going to test the qualitative data, then our testing purpose is to understand the human behavior basically, and for testing such kind of data we normally use chi-square test, because chi-square test is the non-parametric test. Okay, this is non-parametric test and it does not based upon certain assumptions. And the other tests over here are t test, f test and z test, and these three tests are the parametric test and they based upon the certain assumptions of the population. And as I have told you earlier in this video that chi-square test can test the goodness of fit, right, goodness of fit. And as well there is another test which can be done by using chi-square test is the independence test. Okay, independence test, and that's why whenever we need to test the qualitative data, then we normally apply chi-square test. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 3. Next, F test is used to test the significance of the differences between or among. So what is the usefulness of F test, why we use the F test? So whether we need to identify the significance of the differences between or among two sample mean or more than two samples mean or variance of two samples, or B and C. B and C means second and third option. So students, as I have told you earlier in this video that F test is what? This is the parametric test. Okay, and F test basically based upon the F statistic, and F statistic is nothing but the ratio. So what is this ratio? This is the ratio between two independent chi-square variates. So here two independent chi-square variates. So this is the ratio between two independent chi-square variates, okay, that are divided by their respective degrees of freedom. So basically this is the ratio between, okay, so for example I have this V1 variate, so divided by its degree of freedom upon second variate divided by its degree of freedom. So this whole ratio is nothing but the F statistic, and that's why F statistic or F test is used to test the significance of the differences between or among variance of two samples. Okay, and as well F test is used by ANOVA. Okay, and ANOVA is the parametric test and this is the extension of T test. In ANOVA we can assess the means between more than two groups. All of you getting? And that's why whenever I need to test or see whether there is differences among or between more than two samples mean, then again for that purpose as well I can use F test, and that's why your correct answer over here should be 4, that is this B and C, because both of these can be done by using F test. Okay, so students, don't confuse with this. Okay, you can understand over here that F test is used to test the significance of the differences between or among more than two samples mean and as well variance of two samples. Okay, next is, now here they have given us two lists, list 1 and list 2, and we need to match list 1 with the list 2. So now let us see over here first of all what is list 2. So in list 2 they have given certain names of the test: Z test, chi-square test and F test. And here in list 1 they have given the use of these tests, why we use this test. So first option is testing the goodness of fit of a distribution, testing the significance of the differences among the average performance more than two sample groups, testing the significance of the difference between the average performance of two sample groups. Okay, and basically these groups are large sized. So now in this video we have seen that chi-square test can be used to test the goodness of fit of a distribution, right? And that's why A will go for 2. So Z test and F test both are parametric test. Okay, and earlier in the previous question itself we have seen that, okay, whenever I need to test for the differences among the performance of more than two sample groups, then in that case I can use F test, and that's why here B will go for 3, and obviously the remaining option C will go for 1, which is Z test, and that's why your correct answer should be 2 over here. So you can see here A will going for 2, B 3 and C1. Okay, so this should be your correct answer. Start with our today's session. Given below are two statements, statement 1 and statement 2. So let us see what are these statements. The null hypothesis states that students will recall significantly more information on a Monday morning than on a Friday afternoon. Okay, and what is statement 2? The alternative hypothesis states that there will be no significant difference in the amount recalled on a Monday morning compared to a Friday afternoon. So over here students, we need to answer the question like which of these statements are basically correct or incorrect, all of you getting. And as I have told you earlier in yesterday's video only, that null hypothesis states basically about that there is no relationship between the two variables. Okay, no relationship. But alternative hypothesis states that there is relationship between the two variables. But if we read both of these statements, then within the null hypothesis part they have mentioned that there is significant relationship between the information on a Monday morning, okay, and on a Friday afternoon. So there is basically the difference, okay, between the information grabbed by the student on a Monday morning and as well information grabbed by a student on a Friday afternoon basically. But in the alternative hypothesis, they have stated that there is no any significant difference between these two things, and that's why exactly opposite statements have been stated over here. So in the place of null hypothesis they have given the definition of alternative hypothesis, and in the place of alternative hypothesis they have given the definition of null hypothesis, and that's why your correct answer should be 2, because both of these statements are incorrect. All of you getting students, because both of these statements are incorrect. Okay, now next is a hypothesis that states zero difference or no difference between the parameter and its assumed value is known as. So whenever a hypothesis states us that there is no difference or zero difference between the parameter and its assumed value, then what type of hypothesis is it? Whether it is simple hypothesis, whether it is directional hypothesis, or whether it is non-directional hypothesis, or whether it is null hypothesis. Okay, so as I have told you earlier in this video only, that such kind of hypothesis is called as the null hypothesis. So you can actually familiarize the word null. So the meaning of null itself is zero. Okay, so it means that there is zero difference or there is zero relationship between the parameter and its assumed value. Okay, what is simple hypothesis? So basically simple hypothesis states us the exact relationship between the variables, okay, there are already, okay, whatever relationship between the variables already there, okay, exact relationship is going to be stated by simple hypothesis. Okay, now what is directional hypothesis? So basically directional hypothesis is the hypothesis which states about the result in one direction only. Okay, it has only one direction, and that's why this kind of hypothesis is tested by one tail test. Okay, and I think we have seen this test as well in yesterday's video, so for that you can refer to yesterday's video. And what is non-directional hypothesis? So this is exactly opposite to the directional hypothesis. Okay, because here the hypothesis does not state about the direction of the results of the test, and that's why this hypothesis is tested by two-tail test. Okay, two-tail test, and that's why your correct answer should be 4 students, which is null hypothesis. When a researcher rejects a true null hypothesis in his or her study and accepts the alternative hypothesis, what type of error is likely? So whenever a researcher rejects a true null hypothesis and accepts the alternate hypothesis, then after that what type of error will occur? As I have told earlier in previous video, students, that there are 2 types of error occur. Okay, whenever we test the null hypothesis in the research process. So those types of errors are type 1 error and type 2 error. So basically students, type 1 error occurs when we reject the true null hypothesis. Okay, whenever we reject the true null hypothesis, then in that situation type 1 error occurs. And whenever type 2 error occurs, then in that situation we are going to accept the false null hypothesis. Okay, false null hypothesis. So these 2 concepts are really important to all of you, because on these concepts every time at each year you will be getting questions in the PhD entrance test. Okay, and that's why in this question your correct answer should be 1, that is type 1 error, because the question asked regarding type 1 error itself, because here we are going to reject the true null hypothesis over here, and in that situation type 1 error occurs. Okay, the probability of not accepting the null hypothesis when the alternative hypothesis is acceptable is called. So what is the probability of not accepting the null hypothesis? And in that situation basically alternative hypothesis is acceptable. So it means that here null hypothesis is false, and that's why we are not accepting it. Okay, so what is the probability of this kind of situation? So whether it is a rejection range, whether it is demarcation, or whether it is normative incidence, or whether it is power. So students, your correct answer should be power, because power is the probability of rejecting null hypothesis when in fact it is false. So whenever this null hypothesis is false, actually it is false in reality, and that's why we are rejecting it. Okay, and the probability of rejecting this false null hypothesis is basically called as what? Power. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 4. Okay, and that's why you can also say that power is the probability of avoiding type 1 error, or power is the probability of not making type 2 error in simple words. Okay, so there are lots of definition for power, but in simple words you can say that power is the probability of not making type 2 error. All of you getting? Now students, what is this demarcation? What is this? So basically demarcation is the marking of limits or boundaries. Then what is this normative incidence? So basically normative incidence is taken from the normative data itself. Okay, and this is the data from a reference population that establishes a baseline distribution for score or measurement, and against which score or measurement can be compared. Okay, and what is rejection range? Rejection range is also called as the critical critical range. Okay, and this is the region and is a set of values for test statistic for which null hypothesis is rejected. Okay, so it includes the values, and for these values basically we are going to reject the null hypothesis. But for this question your correct answer should be 4, that is power. Next, given below are two statements. Now here as well you have been given two statements, statement 1 and 2. Okay, and we need to give the answers, basically what are the statements correct from these two statements. Okay, now let us see what is statement 1. Type 1 error refers to the decision to reject the null hypothesis when it is incorrect. Okay, and what is statement 2? Sampling error occurs due to the violation of the principle of random sampling. So basically, as we have seen earlier in this video, that type 1 error, basically what is that? This refers to the decision that we are going to reject the null hypothesis, okay, when it is basically true or correct. Okay, but exactly opposite is given in this statement. Okay, and that's why this statement becomes false. And what is the second statement? Sampling error occurs due to the violation of the principle of random sampling. Okay, so basically sampling error occurs due to the mistakes in the sampling techniques, or due to the mistakes in choosing the wrong sample size. All of you getting? So sampling error does not occur due to the violation of the principle of random sampling, and that's why this again statement becomes false. So your correct answer should be 1 over here, because both of these statements are false. Okay, using an appropriate parametric test in a research project, the researcher finds evidence to reject the null hypothesis. In doing so, which type of error is likely? So basically, a researcher did a particular parametric test in a research project, and after doing the parametric test, he finds the evidence that he need to reject the null hypothesis. Okay, so whenever he is rejecting the null hypothesis, then in that situation what type of error will occur? So whether alpha error will occur or beta error will occur, or both alpha and beta errors will occur, or neither alpha not beta error will occur. So basically students, there are two types of error that I have told you earlier, and those are type 1 error, okay, and type 2 error. Okay, so again I am going to tell you about this. So type 1 error occurs when we are going to reject the null hypothesis whenever it is true. Okay, all of you getting? Null hypothesis. And type 2 error occurs when we are going to accept the false null hypothesis. Okay, so the probability of occurring type 1 error is called as alpha. Okay, is called as alpha error or alpha, and the probability of occurring type 2 error is called as the beta or beta error. But in this situation, basically researcher is going to reject the null hypothesis, and he is not going to accept the null hypothesis, and that's why over here type 2 error gets eliminated. So the only remaining option will be type 1 error, and its probability is what? Alpha error, and that's why your correct answer should be 1, that is alpha error. Okay, and as well students, both the errors does not occur simultaneously in any research process. Okay, so your correct answer should be 1. Next, given below are two statements, statement 1 and statement 2. So let us see statement 1. In research, null hypothesis when rejected offers the scope for accepting the alternative hypothesis or substantive research hypothesis. Okay, and statement 2 is when the null hypothesis is rejected, there will be chances for committing a beta rather than alpha error. So now the statement 1 states that whenever in a research process, whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then obviously it offers us the scope that we need to accept the alternative or substantive research hypothesis. And this statement is correct, because whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then automatically we accept the alternative hypothesis, okay, because this is a rule, okay, and that's why this statement is correct. But the second statement states that whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then there will be chances for committing a beta error rather than alpha error. But this statement is incorrect, because as we have seen earlier in this video, that whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then there will be the chances for occurring type 1 error, okay, not type 2 error, because within the type 2 error we are going to accept the null hypothesis, we don't reject it, and the probability of occurring type 1 error is itself what? Alpha, okay, and that's why over here there will be chances for committing alpha error, okay, there should not be beta error, and that's why your correct answer should be 3, because over here statement 1 is correct but statement 2 is incorrect, okay. Next, a research scholar finds through statistical analysis that the value of t is significant. What decision is warranted on the basis of this hypothesis? So basically a research scholar is doing statistical analysis in his research process, and after doing the statistical analysis he finds that the value of t is significant. Okay, so based on this value of t which is significant, okay, what decision he will take about the hypothesis? So whether he will reject the null hypothesis, or whether he will accept the research hypothesis, or whether he accept the null hypothesis, or whether he reject the research hypothesis, or whether there is no decision is warranted in respect to the research hypothesis. So as I have told you earlier that whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then obviously we need to accept the research hypothesis, and vice versa. And null hypothesis basically states us that there is no difference or no relationship between the variables, but research hypothesis alternatively tells us that there is a difference or relationship between the two variables, okay. And over here, after doing the statistical analysis, researcher has got a t value significant. So it means that whenever we get the t value as a significant value, then we need to accept the research hypothesis over here, okay, and that's why in this situation we need to reject the null hypothesis, and that's why the two decisions is warranted over here on the basis of this hypothesis, and these two decisions are that null hypothesis should be rejected and research hypothesis should be accepted. So your correct answer should be 1, that is A and B only, okay. Next, hypothesis in research means. What is the meaning of hypothesis? As I have told you earlier in the previous video as well, hypothesis is the basically the prediction of the results of your whole research process, okay, and that's why whenever you are doing a proper prediction, then this is a statement, and basically this statement includes a proper clarity about the variables under study. It includes the clearly definition about the proper relationship between the variables, okay, and that's why hypothesis is intellectual guess, this is a brilliant guess, and this is an intelligent guess, all of these, okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 1, that is 1, 2 and 3. So hypothesis can't be a negative guess, okay, because if it would be a negative guess, then how we can test it, okay, and that's why always it should be an intelligent, then intellectual and brilliant guess. A good hypothesis must possess the following main characteristics. Now over here they have given some characteristics of hypothesis, so we need to identify the main characteristics of a good hypothesis over here. So let us see different characteristics. Hypothesis should be capable of being tested, so it means that hypothesis should have testability, so we should be able to test the hypothesis, A good hypothesis can defy law of nature. So it means that good hypothesis, deny the law of nature basically. Hypothesis should be clear and precise. A good hypothesis permits of the application of deductive reasoning. Hypothesis should be unlimited in scope. So basically students, as we have seen earlier in yesterday's video, that hypothesis should have testability. It means that it should be capable or able to be get tested, because we need to test the hypothesis so that we will get the final results of our whole research process, and that's why hypothesis should be capable of being tested. So this is one of the main characteristic of a good hypothesis. Good hypothesis can defy law of nature. So this is basically incorrect, because good hypothesis should able to clearly specify and permit the law of nature. It should not defy the law of nature. All of you getting? And hypothesis should be clear and precise. Yes, this is again the main characteristic of good hypothesis, because hypothesis should be clear and it should have clarity so that we can easily test it. Then hypothesis permits of the application of deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is the process, or you can say approach of a research. So in this approach basically we have an existing theory, and based upon an existing theory we are going to formulate a hypothesis, and after that we are going to test the hypothesis by using different statistical techniques, and after that finally we get the results. Okay, so this is nothing but the whole approach of deductive reasoning towards the research, and basically good hypothesis permits this application of deductive reasoning for its testing. Okay, because without deductive reasoning we can't test the hypothesis, and that's why again this is the main characteristic of good hypothesis. And the last one is incorrect, because a hypothesis should be limited in scope. Okay, it should not have unlimitations in the scope. Okay, that's why your correct answer should be 2, that is A, C and D only, because A, C, D, these are the options which are the main characteristics of a good hypothesis. Okay, a researcher tests the null hypothesis through two-tailed test, and another researcher tests directional hypothesis through one-tailed test. The difference is in. So basically in this question they have asked us that exactly what is the difference between two-tailed test and one-tailed test in regard to the testing part of null hypothesis and directional hypothesis respectively. So basically students, in one-tailed test there is only one end for alternative hypothesis. Okay, and that's why it is called as the directional hypothesis. Okay, but for two-tailed test it has two ends. Okay, both the ends, and those are left and right ends. Okay, and that's why there are lots of differences in the testing part of two-tailed test and one-tailed test, and those are differences in statistical formula, because these are the two different tests, and that's why we need to use different statistical formula. Again the level of significance is different, and as well the table value that we use for testing significance is different. So basically all of we know that what is the table value. So basically there is a table which is called as the T distribution table. Okay, and that table is for both two-tailed test and one-tailed test, and the values are different for two-tailed test and one-tailed test in the table, and we need to use those values for testing the significance level. All of you getting? And that's why the difference is in all of these aspects, and those are statistical formula, level of significance, table value used for testing significance. Okay, that's why your correct answer should be 4. Next, a null hypothesis is. Now what is the definition of null hypothesis? Whether it is an intelligent hunch about probable result, or it is a type of research hypothesis, or it is a statistical hypothesis to be tested, or it is a research hypothesis formulated for a statistical inference. So basically students, a null hypothesis is a statement in that we predict that there is no relationship between the variables under study, and in the research methodology we only test the null hypothesis. Okay, this is the only hypothesis that we test in the research process, and that's why your correct answer should be 3. That is, it is a statistical hypothesis to be tested, because there are lots of research hypotheses including directional hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, which is also called as a research hypothesis, statistical hypothesis over there, simple hypothesis, composite hypothesis is there, but there is only one hypothesis, which is the null hypothesis, and that is only tested in the whole research process, not other any kind of hypothesis. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be 3. When we reject the null hypothesis, we are suggesting that the treatment is dash the dependent variable. So whenever we reject the null hypothesis in the research, then after that what will happen to the dependent variable and independent variable? So whether the treatment is not related with the dependent variable, or whether the treatment is likely to affect the dependent variable, or whether the treatment is not likely to affect the dependent variable, or none of these. So basically students, there are two basic types of hypothesis in whole research process, and those are null hypothesis, okay, that I have given the definition for this earlier in this video, and the another one is alternative hypothesis, okay, which is also called as the research hypothesis. Because in the alternative hypothesis we predict that there is the relationship between the two variables, but in the null hypothesis we predict that there is no relationship between the two variables under study. And that's why whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then automatically we accept the alternative hypothesis. Okay, and that's why here ultimately we accept that there is the relationship between the two variables. So it means that the treatment is going to likely affect the dependent variable. It means that whenever we study the variables in the research process, so basically there are two common types of variables, and those are independent variables and dependent variables. Okay, and whenever there is a relationship between these variables, then obviously independent variable is the cause variable, so it causes some effects in the dependent variable. So whenever we alter the values of independent variables, then obviously it will affect the values of the dependent variable. So it's like that, and that's why whenever we reject the null hypothesis, then obviously we are going to accept the alternative hypothesis, and that's why it suggests that the treatment is affecting the dependent variable, and that's why your correct answer should be 2, that is likely to affect the dependent variable. Which of the following outcomes is reflected when we fail to reject a false null hypothesis? So whenever we fail to reject a false null hypothesis, then what will happen? So whether there will be type 2 error or there will be type 1 error, or when there is both types of errors, and those are type 1 and type 2 error, or none of these. So students, basically there are two types of errors in the whole null hypothesis testing part, and those are type 1 error and type 2 error. Okay, so within the type 1 error, when it will happen, or what is the outcome? So basically whenever there is null hypothesis, okay, and you are going to reject the null hypothesis, though it is true, okay, this null hypothesis is true, but still I am going to reject it. So in that case type 1 error will happen. And in what situation type 2 error happens? So whenever there is a null hypothesis, okay, and this null hypothesis is false, but I am not going to reject it, so I am going to accept it. Okay, so in this situation basically type 2 error happens, and that's why the above situation in the question is basically the type 2 error. Okay, because here the null hypothesis is false, but we are failing to reject it. It means that the null hypothesis is false, but we are accepting it. Okay, and that's why in this situation your outcome will be type 2 error. Okay, and I want to tell you one thing, that students, in the research methodology part, okay, either type 2 error will happen or type 1 error will happen. Okay, both the types of error that, and those are type 1 and type 2 error, will not happen simultaneously in one research process. So understand this thing, students. Okay, and that's why your correct answer should be either type 2 error or type 1 error. So you need to eliminate this option as a whole. Okay, whenever such kinds of question will asked in your entrance exam. Okay, and that's why in this situation type 2 error is occurring. Which of the following is correct while conducting a test of significance? So whenever I am doing a test of significance, then okay, which of these following options are correct? So alpha is the probability of finding a significant correlation or difference erroneously by chance alone. Alpha should be set by the experimenter before the experiment. Alpha values are often set to 0.05 or 0.01, but there is nothing sacred about these numbers, all of these. So basically, students, test of significance means what? So basically, test of significance is nothing but you are testing your null hypothesis by using the statistical methods in the whole research process. Okay, and that's why what is exactly this alpha? So alpha is what? As we have seen earlier in this video, that type 1 error occurs whenever we are testing the null hypothesis. So the probability of occurring type 1 error, okay, is called as alpha, and that's why ultimately alpha is the probability of finding a significant correlation or difference erroneously. All of you getting? Because this is the probability of occurring a type 1 error, and that's why ultimately this is the probability of finding a significant correlation between the variables or difference between the variables, but by chance alone. All of you getting? And as well, there is some common values for alpha, and experimenter or researcher should set these values before the experiment, because they will understand exactly what will happen or what will be the results of their research. Okay, and alpha values are often set to 0.05 or 0.01, but there is nothing sacred about these numbers. Again, this statement is correct because the smaller the values of alpha, the greater is the test of significance value. So I mean to say that your test results will be more significant when the alpha values will be more smaller. All of you getting? And that's why all of these options are correct in regard to the test of significance part. Okay, now next is type 1 error occurs if. Now this is the easiest question. Okay, so whenever students you will understand exactly what is the type 1 error and type 2 error, then you won't fail to answer these questions correctly in your exam. All of you getting? So let us see different options. The null hypothesis is rejected even though it is true. The null hypothesis is accepted even though it is false. Both the null hypothesis as well as alternative hypothesis are rejected. None of the above. So your correct answer should be obviously 1. As I have told you earlier in this video that whenever the null hypothesis is true but still we reject it, then in that situation type 1 error occurs. Okay, all of you getting? And that's why your correct answer should be 1. Okay. A statement of prediction. Now here focus on the word prediction, that sets forth the basis for testing the relationship between variables in an attempt to link theory to reality is called. So from these options, which is the statement of prediction, and this statement of prediction gives us a basic idea, okay, for testing the relationship between the variables. And as well, this is the statement of prediction, okay, and we are going to test this statement of prediction because we need to understand, okay, the relationship of the theory to reality. We are going to link the theory to reality. Okay, so this kind of statement of prediction is called as what? Whether it is random sampling, whether it is questionnaire, whether it is hypothesis, whether it is assumption. So all of you now understood that, students. Now the correct answer is hypothesis, because hypothesis is the statement of prediction. That's why I have told you that focus on this word, prediction. So whenever you see prediction in the research methodology section, then it is nothing but the hypothesis. And one more thing is that hypothesis gives us the basic information, okay, about what? About the testing of relationship between the variables under study, and as well this is the attempt to link theory part to the reality. All of you getting? And that's why your correct answer should be hypothesis, not assumption, because there is a lot of difference between hypothesis and assumption. Assumption is only the thing which comes after our intuitive thinking, but hypothesis is the proper prediction. It is a proper statement of prediction. This is not a intuitive thinking part. And as well, hypothesis includes the relationship between the variables, and as well this is an attempt to link theory to reality, but assumption is not like this. All of you getting? And random sampling is the technique in the research process, okay, by using which we are going to select the samples from the target population. And questionnaire is the data collection method under which researcher asks the questions to the respondents and respondents give the answers to them. And that's why your correct answer should be 3. Okay. Hypothesis must have. So hypothesis must have which kind of feature or characteristic? So whether it is testability, whether it is applicability, whether it is durability or measurement. So hypothesis must have testability. This is the most important characteristic hypothesis must have, because whenever hypothesis does not have testability, then how we are going to test it? By using the statistical techniques. And that's why hypothesis must have testability. Okay, and that's why we can test it by using statistical techniques, and finally we get the results, okay, whether the results will be significant or non-significant. All of you getting? And that's why hypothesis must have testability. It should be clearly, notify exactly what is the relationship between the variables, and hypothesis, it should have clarity as well. That's why your correct answer should be 1. To test a null hypothesis, a researcher uses. So whenever I want to test a null hypothesis, then what type of statistical technique I should use? So whether it is t-test or ANOVA or x-square or factorial analysis. So in this situation, a researcher uses ANOVA. So let me tell you why. So t-test is the parametric test, as we have seen earlier in before videos, right? So this is the parametric test, and here there are 2 groups, group 1 and group 2, and we are going to find out the mean values of group 1 and group 2, and we are going to compare these values, okay, whether the values are different or equal. And by comparing these mean values, we will get the results of our research. All of you getting? And this is nothing but the t-test, and t-test is going to compare only 2 variables. Okay, by using the t-test we can only compare the 2 variables, okay, in a whole research process. ANOVA, what is this? So ANOVA is the extension of t-test. I mean to say, this is the test which is based upon t-test only, but this is the advanced t-test. Okay, and here we are going to analyze the variance basically. Okay, this is the analysis of variance, and within the ANOVA test we are going to compare the means of different groups, but here we can compare more than 2 variables at a time, and that's why ANOVA test is more favorable than t-test. Okay, And that's why researcher uses ANOVA to test null hypothesis, because sometimes in a research process there are more than two variables. So in that situation we need to use ANOVA, okay, than t-test. Okay, what is x square? X square is the chi-square test, okay, and chi-square test is a non-parametric test, and chi-square test is done to understand the difference between the expected values and the values that we get through our results basically, okay. And that's why to test a null hypothesis, researcher does not use chi-square test. Okay, researcher uses null hypothesis. And what is factorial analysis? So basically factorial analysis is the technique by which we reduces a large variable into smaller variable factor, and that's why it is called as a factorial analysis. So your correct answer for this question should be 2. Okay. Next is, if the null hypothesis is false, then which of the following is accepted? This is the easiest question, students. Whenever we reject the null hypothesis because it is false, then what type of hypothesis we are going to accept? Whether it is null hypothesis, positive hypothesis, negative hypothesis, or alternative hypothesis. So obviously students, whenever we are going to reject the null hypothesis and it is false, then in that situation we are going to accept the alternative hypothesis, which is also called as the research hypothesis, right? That I have told you earlier in this video. Okay, that's why your correct answer should be 4, that is alternative hypothesis.